This feudal lord is highly scientific. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. I will lead the charge. Orf rose into the air and turned into a huge ball of light, and his body seemed to have become a thick thunderbolt. Thunder pressure. Orf's voice was mighty and powerful, and no one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Suddenly, the power of the truth researcher roared out, and a thin shield was like a bowl around the Azan castle, with some electric current flashing on it. This thunder pressure shield was obviously a skill that Orf learned from Lin Ke's pressure shield. However, the power it used was far greater than Lin Ke's, and some lightning element were added. As Orf rose into the air, the pressure around the Azan castle was immediately blocked by the shield and dissipated. At this time, Lin Ke realized that the loud noises that sounded at the beginning were actually roars and screams. It seemed that the loud noises were filtered by Orf's pressure shield into sounds audible to human ears. Tide. 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 You have boundless power. Everything is driven by you. The supreme essence of the world. The power of the tide. Praise you. Sing praises to you. Believe in you. Those were the prayers of believers. However, the voices of these prayers were full of anger, despair, and madness. Look at that. A noble pointed in the direction of the great swamp in the distance. Everyone turned their heads, and Lin Ke immediately looked over. Wow, a huge light blue water ball rose from a far distance, with a faint golden color wrapped in the center of the water ball. The golden color was extremely bright, and although it was as thin as a hair, it was clearly visible, even if it was wrapped in a water ball dozens of times larger. Sister. Seeing the golden color, Princess Lin Ke exclaimed with disbelief. Is that Lady Tide? Exclamation mark. Lin Ke suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Lady Tide fell. And that was what was left after Lady Tide fell. Suddenly, visible air currents formed a red furry claw, a reddish beak, and a pitch black scaly tail. 3 huge air currents bombarded the water ball in the middle, bringing with them hurricanes. You are the ultimate secret of power. You are the daughter of the moon. You are the daughter of black and white. The ocean will also be shaken by your power. Supreme, the master of the tide. The prayers about the tide became faster and louder, and the blood cloud in the sky became more and more red. The water ball representing the lady of the tide and the claw that obviously represented the beast collided with each other. Roar. Cry. Ah. 3 huge and painful roars sounded, as if they had suffered a lot of damage in this collision. But the water flow exploded directly because of this. The golden light in it continued to rise into the sky, like a small snake running through the sky at a high speed, and the 3 claws intercepted it again. At this moment, the sky suddenly changed. The sky was originally blue and the temperature was slightly hot, but later it turned into a blood red sky. At this time, all the celestial images disappeared. The sky turned dark, or rather, it was completely blue, black and dark blue, without any starlight. But there was a full moon. That moon was much larger than usual, bright, and exuded a quiet atmosphere. Safe, quiet, deep, and mysterious. A ray of moonlight poured down from the moon, like a pale yellow passage, shining on the golden glove Lady Tide. However, at this moment, surprisingly, in this originally quiet night, the sun suddenly jumped out. The sun exuded endless brilliance and heat, piercing the silence of the night, hot and warm. The whole sky was suddenly split into black and white. Moon, you have crossed the line. Along with the appearance of the sun, there was also a majestic warning. At the same time, a ray of sunlight penetrated the barrier of the night like a sharp sword, shining on the golden glow that was being led by the moonlight. Polo Boy Eater, go back to your allies. That's my daughter. Otherwise, Woomian will go to your kingdom of God to talk to you in person. An angry intermittent voice sounded from the moon. The voice sounded clear and cold, but it had a different kind of deterrent power. When he heard the word Woomian, Polo Boy Eater seemed to have some concerns. The sun phenomenon paused, and then gradually disappeared into the darkness. The beam of sunlight that was radiated was also instantly retracted. It came quickly and disappeared quickly. The sky was shrouded in darkness again. The golden light representing Lady Tide had been led to the moon. At the last moment, Lin Ke seemed to see more than a dozen figures on the moon, all of whom should be gods, especially a woman emitting endless moonlight. One of the concubines of Emperor Wumian. She created the Silence and Night Goddess, also known as the Moon Goddess of the Moon Goddess. The one who just had a brief confrontation with the Moon Goddess was the belief of the Holy Life Alliance, the Holy Lord respected by all tribes and clans, and the Sun God who granted the supreme kingship to the monarch of the Alliance, Polo Boita. The monarch of the Holy Life Alliance may not be the strongest there, but he can obtain the right to rule through the form of divine right of kings. Of course, every great monarch of the Holy Life Alliance is almost equal to or even surpasses the Sun God in strength, and the current monarch is looked down upon by the Alliance people because of his weak strength. The brief collision in the sky just now was a collision between the Sun God and the Moon Goddess. It seems that the Moon Goddess wanted to take back the divinity or godhood of Ms. Tide, but was blocked by the Sun God. Could this monster Tide be related to the Holy Life Alliance? Lin Ke thought to himself. But in the end, the Sun God seemed to retreat, and I don't know what the reason was. This made Lin Ke feel irritated for no reason. Too weak. He is too weak now. Not only is he not qualified to enter the game between the big men, but he may also be killed by some aftermath. At this time, it seemed that, because Lady Tide had been destroyed, the attacks of those monsters had dissipated, and the sky had returned to peace. The night faded, and the midday sky appeared again. It seemed that the whole world was still as peaceful and calm as before, as if nothing had happened. But many people knew that the sky had changed. Aofu descended from the sky. His face was extremely solemn, and he said to Lin Ke, "Lin Ke, will you follow me into my plane to hide?" Aofu's personality was not the competitive type, but the I can't afford to provoke you, but I can afford to hide type, and he was also socially anxious. "Teacher, please be patient." Lin Ke shook his head, comforted Aofu, and then strode forward. The nobles were scolding their guards and servants, and those mounts such as deer, wolves, cows and horses were also comforted by someone, and they were in a mess. But after Lin Ke came over, he inevitably attracted everyone's attention. You know, they had to bear a lot of aftermath damage just now, but with Aofu here, they not only didn't have to bear the damage, but also could hear some confrontations between some bigwigs. Yes, for the top bigwigs, the sons of earls and marquesses present are just some small people. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you have seen what happened just now. Lin Ke's voice was low, and he used the sound amplification technique. Everyone suddenly quieted down. Originally, they were all doing their own thing, busy comforting their own people and themselves. It's just that Lin Ke knew the news of the coming war in advance, so he was prepared, and not panicked at all. So everyone was affected by Lin Ke's calmness. Everyone, without the suppression of Lady Tide, the endless monsters in the lava swamp are about to pour out. This is a disaster for our Gila kingdom, especially for the nobles near the lava swamp. Lin Ke's voice was low and solemn, and several other people couldn't help but change their faces when they heard it. Only Azanan borders the Great Swamp, but there are many territories bordering Azanan. When some people's faces changed, Lin Ke spoke again. "Everyone. We have His Majesty Wumian." As soon as the 4 words of His Majesty Wumian came out, the scene returned to silence again. Lin Ke was surprised at the deterrent power of the King of Black and White, but he did not stop talking. "We must defend our territory before His Majesty Wumian and his men arrive." But, as he spoke, Lin Ke looked around, and looked at the powerful figures such as Count Akali and Count Giant Sword. "But, we can't do it alone. We must unite. 10 scattered armies of 1,000 people cannot defeat a united army of 10,000 people. I don't want to lose my territory and then rely on His Majesty Wumian and his men to help me take it back. I'm a noble. A glorious noble with the glory of my ancestors flowing in my body." Lin Ke said loudly. The scene was silent, and everyone was thinking about Lin Ke's words. Indeed, if a noble lost his territory and then relied on other nobles to recover the land, his ancestors would probably be so angry that they turned into undead and came back to kill him. "Little Lin Ke, what do you want to do?" Count Akali was worthy of being a friend recognized by Lin Ke, and he was the first to speak at this time. Lin Ke cast a thankful look at Akali, and then said, "I will build a fortress outside the Great Swamp for all the coalition soldiers to use. The entire Azan army will be sent out, leaving only the most basic guarding force. At the same time, my teacher, the star-level professional, Lodorf, will support us." As he spoke, Lin Ke's voice became much louder, and he paused, his eyes solemn, and, "I will lead the charge." As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked. Leading the charge is usually done by the most powerful professionals or the death squad. The nobles' favorite thing to do is actually behind the scenes. Whether they cherish their lives, are afraid of death, or are strategizing, there are always few people who will lead the charge. But Lin Ke remembered that in the previous life of the Iron and Steel Alliance, the Zengwei of a unit often died the fastest, because they would rush to the front. And those Zengwei, because the death and injury rate was too high, they were not given guns and ammunition, but they rushed with benches. This is will. This is also the terrifying cohesion of the Iron and Steel Alliance in the previous life. In the previous life, it was a world where all beings were equal, but now it is a world with power differences. Lin Ke, as a noble, must gather the momentum of the entire Azan, otherwise there is no way out. I remember my father said, the oldest nobles are often the most courageous. They lead their people to move forward in the direction of hope and glory. At this time, Princess Rika's cold voice came, and the nobles turned their heads to look over, only to find that there were faint traces of tears in the corners of Rika's eyes. Just now, Rika's sister, Lady Tide, fell. It seems that Rika and Lady Tide have a very good relationship. At this time, Princess Rika had a calm face, but there was a faint anger suppressed in her green pupils, and the more the anger swelled, the colder Rika's voice became. "I'm the daughter of Wumian. I will defend the oldest glory of my human race with Mr. Lin Ke. I will charge with Lin Ke. The human race will always stand." Princess Rika's last sentence was clearly from Emperor Wumian, and Lin Ke had also seen it in the book Nasung's minutes. "Your Highness, you can't. Your Highness. Your blood is so noble." Some nobles around were shocked and tried to persuade her. Some looked at Butler Curry behind Princess Rika. "Sir Curry, please persuade the princess." Butler Curry still stood behind Rika with a smile on his face. He knelt on one knee towards Princess Rika and said softly, "I will defend the glory of the Gida family until the stars fall, the world collapses, the rules are destroyed, and I will never change until I die." He is the butler of the Gila royal family and the elder who watched Rika grow up. Princess Rika may die in glory, but that will be after his death. Swear to follow Princess Rika to death. Butler Curry's eyes were filled with relief, pride and fearlessness. The Gida family, also known as the Black and White family, has always respected glory. Between dignity and life, they disdain to retreat. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Princess Lika's expression became more resolute, and Lin Ke looked at Lika with a little more real respect. At this moment, the sound of rumbling horse hooves sounded in the distance. Lin Ke looked back. He saw Laplace, the son of the long-lost Marquis of Ice, leading his guards and servants to rush over quickly. Lin Ke looked over, with a puzzled tone, and asked loudly, "Sir Laplace, excuse me, I want to fulfill the noble obligations of the Ice family." Laplace's voice was almost roared, and it seemed that he had never learned the art of amplification, and his face was red from roaring. "You mean?" Lin Ke's expression moved slightly. "The Ice family is closest to the lava swamp is Azan. I mean, I want to stay and teach those monsters who dare to invade the Black and White Kingdom a lesson." Laplace roared as he rushed here, rode his horse to Lin Ke, and panted slightly. Even though Lin Ke was quite calm, he couldn't help but get excited by Laplace's words. "Okay, let's fight those beasts together." Speaking of which, Laplace and him were just fighting for pride before. Laplace felt that he was always in the limelight, and Princess Lika should see him the most. So when Princess Lika didn't pay attention to him, and wanted to marry Lin Ke, he ridiculed Lin Ke. In the final analysis, it was just a fight between ignorant little brats. At this time, Lin Ke turned his head and looked at the nobles, especially Princess Lika. "Everyone, please set off. I, Azan, will also gather all my strength within 2 days, 6 kilometers away from here." Lin Ke pointed to the south. Thanks to his use of the coordinate system to plan the development direction of the territory at any time, he can be said to know this place very well. 6 kilometers is about a quarter of the distance between the southernmost village of Azan and the northernmost part of the Great Swamp. Defending there, you can attack when you advance or defend when you retreat. So, Lin Ke once again declared in a resounding voice, I will lead the charge. Resist the monsters. The second time this was said, everyone finally knew Lin Ke's determination, and they all respected Lin Ke, and the scene was solemn. I will swear to follow the glory of Lin Ke. At this time, John's voice also sounded. He knelt on one knee, lowered his head towards Lin Ke, and tapped his left chest with his right hand. His tone was full of suppressed enthusiasm. I will swear to follow the glory of Lin Ke. Not Azan, but Lin Ke. Butler Billy, the bunny Nix, the castle maid, the captain of the guards, and a series of people, as well as Azan's guards and servants, knelt on one knee at the same time. The words were scattered, but full of enthusiasm and worship. Their lord, their king of Azan, their master Lin Ke, was going to lead the charge. How brave. How great. How glorious. Today, they felt the incomparable wisdom, faith and glory in Lin Ke. They are willing to follow such a noble. The nobles looked at this scene, looked at Lin Ke, and seemed to see an ancient and powerful noble slowly rising. I remember, today is Mr. Lin Ke Azan's 6th birthday. Well, 6 years old, right? The great sword earl's voice sounded half sighing and half appreciating, as if muttering to himself, and he also called Lin Ke Mr. Lin Ke in his tone. Of course, his voice was also heard by everyone. So, the nobles reacted. They were all shocked, and then they showed 12 points of respect. 6 years old, the future is limitless. Chapter 102 Lin Ke's power. In front of Azan Castle, Lin Ke expressed his determination, and gained the friendship and respect of almost all the nobles. Even 12 powerful nobles, including Count Giant Sword, Count Acre, and Viscount Mantis, expressed their willingness to stay and fight with Lin Ke and Princess Lika. Regardless of whether they had other thoughts, they were willing to stay. At the same time, they also sent people back to their own territory to summon more support to come here. Others, such as Laplace, the son of the Marquis of Ice, who were not powerful nobles of the 2nd level, enthusiastically expressed that they would return to the territory and persuade their fathers to support. Of course, whether they could be persuaded or not, and whether they could come back after going, Lin Ke also expressed doubts. Never have hope for all nobles. But Lin Ke didn't want this bunch of noble descendants to die here, because even if the war was won, Azan would make enemies with many nobles. And Laplace finally said firmly that, as long as he was here, his father would definitely bring troops here. So except Laplace, most of the other noble descendants also rushed back to the territory. Lin Ke only hoped that these people could bring more reinforcement while their enthusiasm was still high. Lin Ke was also surprised that nobles like Viscount Mantis, who had grievances with Azan, were willing to stay. Either they had other thoughts, or they were just noble inside. This made him sigh that in this world with inconvenient transportation and underdeveloped information, some nobles were indeed very noble inside, to be able to maintain the survival of such a large country. If it had only relied on the strength of Emperor Wumian, the kingdom of Gila might have fallen apart long ago. The human race can't stand as a country in nothing, where many races and planes are everywhere, and the inner perseverance of the nobles is also a crucial link. Although, for people like Viscount Mantis, Lin Ke estimated that the reason for staying was not simple. At this time, Lin Ke calmed down after his enthusiasm, and began to arrange defense matters. Reception room. After the nobles of Azan left, Lin Ke brought Count Giant Sword, Princess Lika and others here, to discuss the defense matters this time. I think this defense is basically divided into 2 stages. The first stage is before the support from your territories arrives, and the second stage is before His Majesty Wumian arrives. Lin Ke sat in the main seat and spoke first. Everyone nodded in approval. What they have to do is actually the first step, to keep the tide of monsters out of Azan. Because Azan Castle is the southernmost part of the kingdom of Gila and the closest place to the Great Swamp. Nobles, who knows how long it will take for our black and white kingdom to mobilize its forces? How long will it take for Emperor Wumian to lead troops to support us? Lin Ke asked. The nobles were confused. How long? How do they know? Okay. Lin Ke sighed inwardly. These nobles, although they are great nobles for Azan, they are not good enough in the eyes of the entire kingdom. They don't even know the efficiency of the kingdom's mobilization, not to mention the entire continent. So, Viscount Azan is indeed just a small insignificant noble in the countryside. Then, let's continue to talk about the military strength and be prepared for not getting support before the end of this year. Lin Ke pondered for a few seconds, and seeing that the atmosphere was a little depressing, he spoke again. Then let's talk about the military strength. So, how many troops do we have now to resist? The great sword Earl is worthy of being a warrior, and is also a noble who has established his strength and status through fighting. He immediately thought of a way to deal with it. Lin Ke looked around and said, Azan's guards can be assembled within 2 days, plus the castle's own guards. There are about 3,000 to 7,000. Lin Ke looked at the others. The others also knew that Lin Ke's control over Azan's territory was not that strong now, so the number fluctuated greatly. Earl Curly and the others directly reported accurate numbers one by one. My territory and private plane can summon 13,000 ordinary soldiers, 6,000 elite soldiers, and 100 professionals, most of whom are low level. Earl Curly said in a deep voice. Worthy of being a powerful earl, Lin Ke was a little envious. My private plane is still in the development stage. The current territory can only summon 8,000 soldiers and 50 professionals. My followers will lead 6,000 elites. I can provide a large amount of supplies. Our territory is rich in wheat and pineapples. The nobles spoke up one after another and immediately solved many problems. However, the biggest problem is the number of troops. No one knows when the first wave of monsters will come, but the first wave of troops they can gather is actually Azan's army and a small part of the neighboring nobles' private army. Added together, there are no more than 10,000 people, and this is also counted in the case that Azan's territory can gather all the forces. The monsters on the opposite side are almost endless. This is still the most basic comparison of numbers, not counting the comparison of the strong. As long as there is a legendary monster king on the opposite side, even AOF will only be a matter of a few claws. So, what should we do? Lin Ke's brain is thinking quickly, and other nobles are also brainstorming. Even Lin Ke is pouting and thinking hard. Laplace simply opened the skill equation group to assist thinking, flashing on the side, causing Lin Ke to be affected by the light. Wait. Equation system? Lin Ke narrowed his eyes suddenly. Yes, the power from Nasan is indeed difficult to resist the tide of monsters. But Lin Ke's clothes are not only red, his inner self is also shining red. A time traveler. Lin Ke's eyes suddenly lit up, and his thoughts flew. Catapults, crossbows, even gunpowder, bombs, mines. There are also various military tactics, strategies, military formations, arms, and equipment of the Chinese sages. He doesn't need to integrate them, nor does he need to apply them mechanically. What he wants is to learn from them and then adapt them to local conditions. So, in the chaos, Lin Ke spoke. I need supplies, a lot of supplies. As he said, Lin Ke stood up and said in a very fast tone, I need saltpeter, wood, sulfur. Yes, I have sulfur mines, and I also need a lot of slaves. Zhuge Liang seemed to have a battle to burn rattan armor. On the side, everyone didn't know what Lin Ke was talking about, but they understood the general meaning. Butler Billy took out a pen and paper in an instant and recorded Lin Ke's words. And guns. With the current technology, they will definitely explode, and their lethality is questionable. Well, paper infuses glass. Glass can be used to make something. The nobles gradually couldn't understand what was being said, and Butler Billy had a hard time taking notes. He couldn't understand a lot of what Lin Ke was saying. Half an hour later, after Lin Ke had finished his output, he was the first to raise his head. He ignored the surprise and numbness of the nobles, and looked at Butler Billy. Uncle Billy, tell the paper mill to start working at full capacity. Make low quality paper. Then he looked at John. John, go to the plane and tell Granny Hissay to make as much of that thing as possible. Also, tell the slaves to stop mining iron ore and focus on mining sulfur ore. Nix. Select 100 servants and learn how to become doctors. And how to become poison masters. Captain Rogers of the guards and Captain Stark of the purchasing team, summon all the guards. All the servants. Call on the people of Azan. Get moving. After Lin Ke made some arrangements, only Antover and Furlong were left standing behind Lin Ke in the entire reception room. Even Orf was used by Lin Ke to produce glass. At this critical moment, everyone in Azan showed a high degree of cohesion. After Lin Ke finished his instructions, he looked at the nobles and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to know each other's strength better and sign a confidentiality agreement. He has too many secrets, and many of them can get a huge amount of feedback, not only in terms of strength improvement, but also in terms of money and power expansion. Therefore, Lin Ke needs to ensure that his interests are not infringed. Otherwise, when the war is going on, if someone is jealous of his industry and robs it, it will be troublesome. Of course, even so, it can't resist the legendary monster." But, Lin Ke looked at Princess Lin Ke. Posted. "But I will definitely continue writing." Chapter 103. A large wave of followers. Reception room. "I have a way to resist the legendary combat power. In addition, the Nasan joint agreement says that legends should not be easily released, so don't worry." Lin Ke felt Lin Ke's gaze and briefly explained. Everyone felt relieved, and Lin Ke also breathed a sigh of relief. Next, everyone signed a confidentiality agreement on a stack of contract scrolls with divine power constraints given by Princess Lin Ke. Unless the signer's strength exceeds that of the divine power holder, the contract scroll with divine power constraints will be bound by divine power. The divine power on Princess Lin Ke's contract scroll comes from the Queen of the Wumian Emperor, the mother of element and dragons, also known as the five-color dragon mother, and the water dragon as the main body of Her Majesty Boru Shilling. It is rumored that Her Majesty Boru has a level no less than that of the King of the Gods back then, at least above level 25. And all the nobles who signed the contract with Lin Ke are below level 15, and it is basically difficult for them to break through level 20. And if they break through level 20, they will not covet Lin Ke's things. Of course, breaking through level 20 is just a thought. It is difficult for them to even break through level 15. Therefore, it is basically impossible to break through the constraints of the contract. After signing the contract and getting to know each other, Lin Ke also told the use of gunpowder, but did not tell the formula. There are also a series of war tools such as catapults and crossbows. The nobles also easily understood what Lin Ke said besides gunpowder, and one by one they also said that they could enhance the power of items. For example, Inscription Master can enchant, Forger can transform, Mystery Mapper can protect. Lin Ke then discovered that the Azanan family, which was promoted to Viscount because of Garros, is not comparable to the Earl, let alone other old Viscounts. This strength is not only reflected in the military strength and high-end strongmen, but also in the richness of the types of professionals, the abundance of basic supporting facilities and materials, etc. Speaking of the types of professionals, in addition to Orf, Lin Ke can currently only show the 6th level, Butler, Billy and the 1st level, Doctor, and Poison Master Nix. At most, we can count half of Singer, Sophie and half of Chemist, Granny Hissei. After all the calculations, there are no more than 10. I just don't know how many other nobles there are in Azan. So after finishing the discussion with Princess Rika and others, Lin Ke met the Azan nobles again. Whether it is a so-called family deliberation meeting, or the other Azans, their faces became complicated this time. Lin Ke didn't say much, and directly stated his purpose. Viscount Garros will return at the end of the year. This is the news I got. Lin Ke's tone was full of certainty, which made the Azan's expressions even more complicated. Submit to me, Lin Ke Azan, or be destroyed by me. Lin Ke said the last sentence, and then looked at everyone expressionlessly. There was silence. The Azans had just heard the changes from the south, and also heard what Lin Ke said before. Coupled with Lin Ke's 6-year-old face, everyone's faces were extremely complicated at this time. They knew some of the power of blood, but they didn't know what kind of blood Lin Ke inherited that was so powerful, and made people so smart. At this time, they must surrender, otherwise they would die. I'm willing to be loyal to you, Master Lin Ke. Baron Puxin, also known as Baron Sandal, was the first to kneel on one knee. Following his lead, a group of lords and pioneer knights also knelt on one knee to declare their allegiance. The 4 barons looked at each other, sighed, and then knelt on one knee. I'm willing to be loyal to you, Master Lin Ke. The 4 barons of Azan, the 18th lord, and the 3 pioneer knights all pledged their loyalty. Among them, there was admiration for Lin Ke, fear of Orth behind Lin Ke, and helplessness about the current situation. There was no way. Even if they could escape in the war, no noble in the Black and White Kingdom would be willing to accept a down-and-out noble who fled in times of crisis, and would even spit on such a coward. Moreover, I swear here that I will lead Azan to obtain supreme glory. Lin Ke obtained the loyalty of all the Azans, so he swore solemnly. The eyes of all the Azans were dazed. Moreover, this young master Lin Ke seemed to be more courageous and more charming than that Garros. Moreover, perhaps Lin Ke could really lead Azan to a higher peak. Even the 4 old barons began to change their attitude. They were inexplicably arrogant, but not stupid. So, it was time to discuss. After putting down their status and pledging loyalty to Lin Ke, the Azans no longer had the mentality of coming here to fight for power and profit as before. With Lin Ke's wisdom, AOF's strength and Garros who was about to return, they were happy to become as obedient as before. And Lin Ke also got some surprises from it. Although these nobles of Azan are like trash, they have a lot of hidden power. At this critical moment, all of them were exposed. For example, Baron Puxin is only a level 3 professional now, but he still has more than a dozen professionals at home, among which the highest level is level 2. The same is true for those barons, who have professionals at the lowest level and the highest level 3 at home. Adding some stored food, weapons, and equipment, etc., Lin Ke found that the power he controlled was more than he thought. Moreover, the elder who was dragged away by Butler Billy before was not dead, and was even cooked by Billy in some unknown way. Now he is very obedient. The entire Azanan, at least on the surface, has been completely controlled by Lin Ke. Everyone, send people to go and come back quickly. Lin Ke also kept a watchful eye and let these Azanan stay here, so that they are not afraid that their territory will not send people to support. The Azanan saw Lin Ke's intentions, and no matter what they were thinking, they all sent people to gather forces. After counting, appeasing, and integrating the power of the nobles and Azanan, Lin Ke couldn't help but increase some confidence. After everyone went to the guest room to rest, Lin Ke met with a group of people again. Sir, so what you mean is? Lin Ke looked at the elegant middle-aged uncle in front of him, and couldn't help but sound a little excited. The middle-aged uncle had long flowing golden hair, and wore the most ordinary cloth, but the whole person had a lazy, luxurious, and romantic feeling. Yes, dear Mr. Lin Ke, we, or most of us, are here for this purpose. The middle-aged uncle replied softly with a smile on his face. In the reception room, in addition to the middle-aged uncle, there were 11 other people, a total of 12 professionals, 11 men and 1 woman. The lowest level is 5, and the highest level is 10. And these professionals actually want to rely on Azan. They either want to find a home, after wandering for a long time, or because of Lin Ke's potential, or because of AOF's deterrence, or because Azan has no head of the family, and thinks there is an opportunity. So they all chose to come on Lin Ke's birthday. There were originally more than 20 people, and some people saw the upcoming war in Azan, so they retreated. But Lin Ke was also satisfied with 12 people. These were 12 professionals. Everyone, if possible, can you introduce yourselves? Lin Ke looked at them. The middle-aged uncle stepped forward first. I'm the 10th level, Bardrami. I originally just wanted to see Azan's young eagle, but I didn't expect to be shocked by the young eagle's first cry. As he spoke, Ramir actually knelt on one knee and pounded his chest with his right hand. I, Ramir, am willing to follow Lin Ke Azan and witness the ancient and noble glory of the nobility. Chapter 104 Intensive Preparations and Inspection. Ramil is a romantic and powerful poet. At least he thinks so. He is nearly 60 years old, but his level is only 10th, a 10th level bard. He traveled around the kingdom of Gila. Although he didn't have the money to visit some secondary planes, he had seen a lot of scenery. He even visited the territory of the Holy Life Alliance and the land of the Everfriz Council. He had seen the rise and fall of nobles, and the prosperity and decline of nobles of all sizes. And today, he seemed to see some characteristics in Lin Ke that only old nobles have. It is a kind of trait that has not been corrupted by the world of luxury, ancient and sacred. And this kind of trait often appears in an extremely prosperous family and in the founders of these families. There are also very few cases where it appears in the heirs, in the declining families, and then relies on these heirs to turn the tide. This situation is very rare, and it is more common for those founders to have this trait. And now, Lin Ke has exactly that trait. At the same time, Lin Ke's characteristics are even better than those nobles that Rami has seen. Because Lin Ke is smarter and younger. At the same time, Lin Ke has cleared the obstacles of his family and is extremely opinionated and even has a star level strongman supporting him behind him. Rami recognizes the potential of this kind of person. Of course, other professionals don't think as much as Rami. Mr. Lin Ke, please let me charge with you. The only female in this group of professionals shouted loudly, making Lin Ke look over. This is a woman wearing pink armor, or a girl of 15 or 16 years old. The girl carried 2 rivet hammers, her short hair was tied behind her head with hay, and she looked fanatical. I will lead the charge. Oh, Andrew's leg. Mr. Lin Ke, I think I'm in love with you. Damn it. I mean, I want to be your follower. The most distinctive feature of the girl is not her cute face with a little freckles, nor her dark black pupils, but the armor on her chest that is about to burst. Oh my god. It was so bright. Is this soon aired in the world? Lin Ke was a little dizzy, but still asked, Madam, please. I'm Lalita, the 8th level, charming beauty. Bah, what are you looking at, you bunch of cowards? I only sleep with strong men. Lalita put down the 2 hammers with a bang. She waved her fists in a show of force, as if to disperse the attention of other professionals. However, because the movement was too big, something really big was about to appear, causing the men around to stare at it straight, and even Rami couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Excuse me, madam, your profession seems to be more suitable for boosting morale. Charging is the job of us men, and it is the job of us knights. Lin Ke couldn't help but look at the foul thing, but reminded it out loud. Isn't it a foul? Exclamation mark. Those who play basketball know that it is very serious to hit someone with the ball. In addition, according to the thinking here, no one clamors for gender equality because men and women here are truly equal. As long as you are strong, who cares whether you are a man or a woman? Damn it. Who said that women can't do men's work? Lalita was a little annoyed when she heard this. If I hadn't been sold to Pink Street by that damn old man, who would be willing to work as a charming beauty bar. As she said that, Lalita rolled her eyes and looked at Lin Ke, showing a flattering smile. That, Mr. Lin Ke, you see, if I follow you, I can work as a knight, right? What I want to work most in my life is knight. I didn't have a choice back then. Now I want to work part-time and then make knight my main job. Lalita smiled embarrassedly. Tragic life experience, violent tendencies, high emotional intelligence. Seeing Lalita's changing expression, Lin Ke looked at her deeply. Of course, but I want to ask. I believe that many nobles will not refuse your joining, and there will be no shortage of knight professional matching. Why did you choose me? This is a very simple question, but it is also what Lin Ke must ask. He also looked at other professionals including Rami. I hope you can answer this question for me. This is very important. There are only a few of these professionals who come here for a reason. Lin Ke needs to make the best use of them and decide how to treat them. Come for benefits, give benefits. Come for feelings, give feelings. Of course, feelings specifically refer to feelings such as passion for a while, making achievements, etc. And they will never be feelings with him. I just heard that Master Lin Ke of Azan is very handsome. Now I see that he is not only handsome, but also very masculine. Lalita shouted, and even from her eyes and fingers, it can be judged that she actually wants to come up and pinch Lin Ke's face. Lin Ke, who did you learn this from? Did you meet other people in the castle? Of course, I don't want to be a plaything of those nobles. I believe Mr. Lin Ke will not do that kind of thing. Lalita added, and it seems that this is also one of her true thoughts. A person with self-esteem. Lin Ke nodded slightly and looked at the other people. These people have already declared their allegiance. Compared with followers, loyalty to the Lord is a looser way of surrendering. After all, there is no need to sign a divine power contract. But to be honest, it does take a little determination to stay at a critical moment. I admire your words. You are a man. A big man answered after Lalita. Then, everyone gave their reasons, and Lin Ke was also trying to distinguish the truth from the falsehood of their words. After speaking, Lin Ke began to distribute these people to various places. There are not many valuable things in Azan Castle. The really valuable things, such as artifact fragments and magic items, are all collected and kept by AOF. These professionals will not come for a little gold coins or something like that. After the distribution, Lin Ke found that most of these professionals are combat types. But that's right. Those non-combat professions, such as enlightenment teacher and architect, are difficult to survive on their own in the early stage. Therefore, most of the nobles are employed in these professions, and only a few who grow up will become popular. After finally dealing with all the things, Lin Ke had no time to rest. He got up from his position without even stretching his waist and hurried out. The castle was still bustling with people, but unlike the previous chaos, the whole castle now showed a kind of order. The servants coming and going were like worker ants in an ant nest, in an orderly manner. The servants walked on both sides, allowing Lin Ke to walk quickly in the middle. He quickly went downstairs and came to the dungeon. 2 burly guards were guarding seriously. From now on, you have to use the secret code when you come here, Lin Ke explained first, and the secret code came out. Others have to say eat a peach, and I can only pass by saying yes Mora. Otherwise, even if I comes, I can't pass if I don't use the secret code. The 2 guards nodded silently. They didn't know the meaning, just accept it. Lin Ke came to the front of the teleportation array, stood quietly, and stared at the magic array in front of him absent-mindedly. After a while, he sighed, input the power of his profession, and came to the plane of orphanate transformation. Today is the 6th year since he was born in this world, his birthday. On his birthday, a god died, and a war between Warcraft and the kingdom broke out. He was really unlucky. Chapter 105 Lin Ke's magic birthday gift. Off-zone plane. In the thatched house on the top of the mountain, a group of maids came in and out, accompanied by a frustrated voice. Andrew's leg. That's sulfur. Be careful. There's only one mine, not enough for me to play with, don't spill it. The ash just now is worth at least 1/10 of a copper coin. Oh Master Lin Ke, who allowed you to touch the glass? This is Lord Orf's creation. Hurry up. Hurry up. Move it faster. Slow down. Slow down. Put it down gently. Granny Zase is still strong and healthy. She put her hands on her waist, hunched her back, and shouted at the maids who were carrying things with a loud voice. Most of the maids were carrying refined sulfur and saltpeter, as well as some burnt charcoal. These maids were doing these jobs for the first time, and were not very skilled, so Granny Zase was anxious. Lin Ke hurried forward to direct them together. After about half an hour, the place was restored to order. Hey, you are worthy of being Master Lin Ke. Granny Zase wiped the non-existent sweat from her forehead, complimented Lin Ke, and then continued. Master Lin Ke, is there going to be a war? Lin Ke nodded and frowned. Yes. A war to defend our territory and people. Granny Zase seemed to understand, and stood there for a while. Then she suddenly took out a paper bag from her arms and handed it to Lin Ke. By the way, Master Lin Ke, isn't today your birthday? I'll give you a birthday present. Oh, what is it? Lin Ke was slightly interested. Birthday gifts are also common in Nassam. For example, he has a lot of birthday gifts today, and he will get gifts from his parents in the evening, such as Feudal and others. But at this time, he has no thoughts at all. At this time, Granny Zase took out a wrinkled small bag from her arms, and some powder could be vaguely seen in it. Lin Ke raised his eyebrows. What is this? Granny Zase looked reluctant and said shyly, this is my new baby. According to the best ratio of black powder you mentioned, I found this formula. You have to be careful, Master Lin Ke. This is the last bag I made. The saltpeter is almost gone. Best ratio. Black powder is one of the 4 great inventions, but because it was not valued by people at that time, it was made into fireworks. The initial production of black powder also had many impurities. Lin Ke remembered that black powder had 1 sulfur, 2 saltpeter and 3 charcoal, and also remembered that the best ratio of black powder was 10% sulfur, 15% charcoal, and 75% saltpeter. However, the specific percentages were not told to Granny Zase, but she was allowed to explore it herself. Unexpectedly, it was discovered in a few days. It's a pity that now is not a good time to teach, guide and impart knowledge to grannies essay, otherwise Lin Ke would definitely talk more about it. For example, the connection between atoms and chemical equations. Now, Lin Ke could only give a few compliments and let Granny Zase focus on making explosives. You did a good job. Granny Zase looked hopeful and said, Master Lin Ke, are you going to give me a raise? I remember it's called salary, right? Workers' capital. Capital means money. This money jar only knows money. Lin Ke's words of praise were stuck in his mouth, and he couldn't say anything. He could only say, do a good job. If you perform well, I will consider giving you a raise after the war is over. Let's paint a big picture first. Granny Zase cheered immediately and then ran to direct the maids like a little girl over 100 years old. Lin Ke smiled and shook his head and walked towards Aofu's thatched house again. When Lin Ke was arranging it, Aofu said that he would come back to make some magic items after making the glass. Now it seems that the glass has been made and Lin Ke came to see how it is. Walking into the thatched house, it was clean and tidy. There were some utensils that Aofu often used and some lightning preserved with magic items. For example, on a table, there were 2 thick leaves floating in the air and in the center of the leaves was a thin lightning. In other places in the room, there were some things with magical fluctuations. It can be seen that these should be Aofu's collection. Aofu had already sensed that Lin Ke was coming. He was standing next to the table with a light blue pen in his hand. Little Lin Ke, this is your birthday present. Aofu raised his hand a little nervously. Lin Ke knew his teacher's problem, so he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the pen and said in a happy tone, Teacher, what kind of pen is this? The pen was light blue all over, and the tip seemed to be some strange blue metal. The pen barrel seemed to have blood flowing in it, and there was a circle of fine hair moving around it, and there was actually a little furry animal hair at the end. Feeling Lin Ke's joy, Aofu secretly breathed a sigh of relief and introduced the compensation given to us by the little guy of the deep blue family before. There are also some miscellaneous things. Oh, and the tail of the deep blue giant tiger, which was made into this pen. Speaking of magic items, Aofu relaxed a little and continued, this pen is considered a 5th level magic item, and it has the characteristics of hard, refreshing, and fresh. It is a gift for you. As he said, Aofu handed the pen to Lin Ke. Thank you, teacher. Lin Ke thanked him, and then hurriedly checked the pen. Magic items. Or, professional items. Ordinary items, such as the cups and plates given to him by the Marquis of Ice, are not very useful and have no special properties. They are made by forgers or blacksmiths with ordinary materials. Even if they have grades, they are not precious unless they have rare or powerful characteristics. Although the grade of this pen made by Aofu is not high, it is specially made for people who use the pen. Lin Ke held it, and a coolness rushed to his brain. He felt his mind was much clearer, and the sleepiness he had felt disappeared. Characteristics, refreshing. Stroking the pen, he felt very comfortable. The hairs felt very soft, and the fluffy tail at the end of the pen seemed to be able to clean the notes when Lin Ke moved his mind, similar to an eraser. This pen has a trace of deep blue blood, which I extracted from the tail of the deep blue giant tiger. It was originally impossible to extract it. But the piece of sleeper's wood that the little guy from the deep blue family compensated you with happened to have this effect. Orf began to talk about the wonders of this pen, looking quite proud. As a professional who does not specialize in magic items, it is quite amazing that he can make such a thing. So that's how it is. While listening to Orf's introduction, Lin Ke tried to nurture the pen with his professional power. To put it simply, the material of this pen was what the steward of the Deep Blue family lost to him because of the sneak attack from behind by that young Master Dylan, including the tail feathers of the 8th level magical beast Blue Smoke Owl and the wood of the sleeper. In addition, when Lin Ke met Nice, the tail of one of the Deep Blue giant tigers was chopped off and then preserved. In the end, this pen was made up. However, the Deep Blue giant tiger, a failed creation of the Deep Blue family, actually has the blood of their family? This is quite strange. Nurture it more. It still has room for improvement in the future. Orf explained, and couldn't help but touch Lin Ke's head, and then pinch the baby fat. Okay, teacher. Lin Ke was very happy. This birthday present was really great. So feel free to pinch your face. And about nurturing magical items. When a hatchet is nurtured by a legend for a long time, it will be more powerful than a legendary weapon in the hands of a non-legendary person. The original words were that the hatchet of the Lord God would also become a Lord God weapon. At least that's what the novel says. Chapter 106 Motivating Bulljack. The acquisition of magic items has dispelled a lot of the haze of war in Lin Ke's heart. But this does not mean that Lin Ke is relaxed. He came to the adjacent iron ore plain again. At this time, the mining of iron ore has stopped, and the slaves are mining sulfur ore with all their strength. Bulljack is standing by the mine with a whip in his hand, looking idle. Since Lin Ke promulgated the ASIN currency, the workload method and the performance appraisal system, Bulljack found that he, the overseer, had no place to use his skills. The slaves worked desperately, and there was no laziness at all. He didn't even need to urge them. After Lin Ke came, Bulljack's eyes lit up, and he immediately trotted over and bowed in an awkward way. Master Lin Ke, you are here? How much sulfur ore is there now? And how are the slaves? Lin Ke nodded slightly. Among the servants in the entire castle, only Bulljack can read, which is quite rare. Master, about 2 tons have been mined so far. About 200 kilograms were transported to Granny's Essay before. Today, someone told me that there will be a war, so another 500 kilograms were transported. Master, are we going to have a war? Bulljack introduced himself seriously at first, but asked curiously in the last sentence. Oh, you want to join the war? Lin Ke looked at Bulljack with a smile. No, I just want to be with you, and I can do anything. Well, anything. Bulljack was sweating when Lin Ke looked at him. Asking about war matters was a bit presumptuous. Well, everyone wants to improve their current status. It's normal to have ideas. I appreciate honesty. Lin Ke smiled and patted Bulljack's shoulder. After the pat, Lin Ke couldn't help but admire Bulljack. This man completely lowered his posture, and his head and shoulders were lowered to the shoulders of a 6-year-old child like him. Lin Ke is not against some flattery, as long as you do things seriously and do them well. Flattery can only be said to have a style problem or an emotional intelligence problem. Lin Ke smiled and said, do your best. If there is no problem on your side after the war, I will give you a chance. In this battle, black powder will be a very important resource. Saltpeter is easy to deal with. Although there is no saltpeter mine, it is enough to collect it from Azin Castle and several villages. As for sulfur, it depends on sulfur mines. So for the Bulljack who can read, Lin Ke is willing to give him a chance and let off help enlighten him once. If he has good talent and good bloodline, Lin Ke will be happy to have another powerful follower. Opportunity. Bulljack's lips trembled when he heard it. Okay, mine well, and let the slaves work overtime. Lin Ke walked back after giving instructions without saying anything more. Bulljack bent over and stood there for a long time before acting, then slapped himself hard. Fuck, work hard. You must work hard. He stood up and ran to the mine excitedly. A group of slaves were transporting slag and raw ore out at a fast speed, their faces full of hope and enthusiasm. They saw that Bulljack did not show any fear or fear. They are the slaves of the great master Lin Ke. In the future, they may become people like Bulljack. There is nothing to be afraid of. Of course, this is also the reason why Bulljack did not treat the slaves too harshly, otherwise he would still be afraid. Bulljack came to the mine and shouted excitedly inside. Everyone listen to me. Master Lin Ke is in trouble and needs us to mine ore with all our strength. Overtime hours can be extended indefinitely. It will be counted into performance. Bulljack understands these slaves best. Since Master Lin Ke gave the slaves hope, these slaves have a belief in their hearts. That is Master Lin Ke. Master Lin Ke is simply their god, their legend. And now, with no limit on overtime hours, the slaves in the mines were so excited to become the best, to make more money. Come on, workers. Come on, slaves. For freedom. For Master Lin Ke. Walking out of the dungeon, the castle was still bustling with people. According to the original plan, Lin Ke should have finished his chores and had a nice meal with Feudal and the others. Even if there were nobles visiting, it would be a meal for everyone at most. Who knows, the gods will fall. On the top floor, Antawa was cleaning up the project materials, and Feudal was helping. The two cat pets on the ground were being teased by Zingayan. Gaga. Seeing Lin Ke coming, Zingayan shouted happily, flapping his slightly fluffy wings. The dark blue giant tiger cub and the cheetah cub looked at Lin Ke with some fear. They could all feel the powerful aura of Lin Ke. But fortunately, they were still a little spiritual and knew who Lin Ke was, so they were not particularly afraid. Little Zingayan, be a good boy, okay? Lin Ke squatted down and put Zingayan on his shoulders, then came to Feudal and the others. Little Lin Ke, you're here. Feudal raised her head, her face full of fatigue, while Antawa didn't even raise her head. Obviously she didn't have time to greet her, and was busy dealing with various matters. Mother, you've worked hard. Lin Ke felt a little distressed, then looked at Antawa, and said to Feudal, Mother, can you help me get a glass of Gidda milk? I want to drink the one you made yourself. Antawa heard what Lin Ke said, and her beautiful hand holding the pen trembled. Feudal did not agree with Lin Ke, and gently placed her right hand on Antawa's shoulder, looked at Lin Ke and whispered, just say whatever you want to say, don't send me away. Lin Ke was silent for a while, then said, Mother, I really want to drink. Little Lin Ke, you are my baby. You have been very opinionated and smart since you were a child. But, I'm your mother, do you understand? Feudal said softly. She squatted down and looked at Lin Ke at eye level, her eyes gentle. You may be able to hide something from me. Maybe you know a lot and are very powerful. But, I'm your mother. Mother, Lin Ke couldn't help but tremble in her heart and was speechless for a moment. Sister, don't say it. At this time, Antawa raised her head from a pile of parchment, leaned her head against the back of the chair, looked at the starry sky outside the window in front, and sighed. Little Lin Ke, I have always regarded you as my descendant. Lin Ke pursed his lips tightly when he heard this, and did not speak. Antawa was also stunned for a long time, then got up from the chair, came to Lin Ke, squatted down, and looked at Lin Ke. There was a clear and bright look in her eyes. Lin Ke looked at Feudal next to him, then at Antawa, and was silent for a moment before speaking. It's not good for you to say it out loud. Hearing this, Feudal smiled and shook her head. Little Lin Ke, I know that your aunt often took care of you when you were a child. That was for your own good. This involved a plan. Lin Ke was silent for a moment, and then, Ms. Antawa, do you remember? That time when I was still a baby, you held a dagger in your hand. Lin Ke's voice was low. In an instant, the room fell silent. Chapter 107 How to Train the Protagonist of the Novel. Lin Ke spoke, and Feudal and Antawa looked at each other in surprise. Little Lin Ke, how is it possible? Your aunt has never. Feudal denied it. But Lin Ke clearly saw the surprise in Feudal and Antawa's eyes. It was not disbelief or fear and anger, but surprise. Sister, it seems that Lin Ke is more precocious than we thought. Antawa shook her head and smiled bitterly. Feudal was stunned when she heard it, and said to Lin Ke with a look of surprise, you were still a baby at that time. Lin Ke was silent at this time, even a little dazed. Why do I feel that thing? Feudal knows. Biological mother? Feudal saw that Lin Ke didn't speak, so she patiently said, at the beginning, my sister wanted to kill you, thinking that you would affect the future of the castle and the territory, and wanted to kill you, but in the end she held back, and even proposed the adversity plan. Feudal began to tell the story, and Antawa looked guilty. Lin Ke listened and gradually understood. It turned out that Antawa did have the intention to kill Lin Ke at first, but she softened her heart because of Lin Ke's cuteness and innocence, and perhaps also because of her feelings for Garros and Furlong. At that time, she softened her heart, and her mind was filled with regret. So that night, Antawa went directly to Furlong to tell her about this matter, and in a moment of regret and crying, she got Furlong's forgiveness. And at that time, the relationship between the two of them changed from sharing a husband to sisters. Antawa even directly treated Lin Ke as her own child, taking care of her in every possible way. At the same time, she also proposed an adversity plan. The so-called adversity plan was written in the books she read. That is, those messy novels, most of which were youth romances, and a small number of them were knight adventures. You have to know that Antaur's study room mostly had those novels, unlike Garros's study room, which also had some real money. Antaur referred to the content of the book, such as a certain little baron, who grew up through adversity and became a giant, and formulated an adversity plan. After reading Antaur's books, Feudal also thought that this plan was very good. The protagonist in the book, like Zyrolisi in The Ring of the Serpent, fought back all the way. So, they wanted to train Lin Ke to be the protagonist in the novel. So, the adversity plan began to be implemented to make Lin Ke grow up. In short, it was to target him everywhere. Including at the beginning, she deliberately released the news that Feudal was punished by her. It's just that Lin Ke was too precocious, which caused Antaur to hold her temper a lot of times. In order to implement the adversity plan, she couldn't get close to Lin Ke like Feudal. As for Baron Puxin, Antaur also wrote letters to inform Feudal and Lin Ke of the time to go there, so as to avoid accidents on the way. Antaur felt that as the Baron closest to them, and Garros's younger brother, he was fully capable of protecting Feudal and them. And every time they went out, Antaur was very worried, for fear that there would be petty thieves and gangsters who would affect Feudal. So during that correspondence, when Antaur wrote, "My lovely Lin Ke and sister Feudal will come to Parrot City tomorrow," she meant that Baron Puxin should be prepared to welcome and protect them. Lin Ke misunderstood. After coming back, she had to act indifferent because of the adversity plan. Speaking of which, from this point of view, Antaur is quite arrogant. And the adversity plan, how can I say it? It's painful. Novels are novels, and reality is reality. Are you kidding? How can there be someone as handsome as Lin Ke in novels? So, I have always asked you to be nice to your aunt. I was wondering what's wrong with you, kid. It turned out to be such a long time ago. I thought it was the influence of the adversity plan. It seems that the adversity plan is very successful. Zyro Lin Ke, you are very smart now. Feudal couldn't help pinching Lin Ke's face. Don't hold grudges in the future. Sister, am I smart because of the adversity plan? It's because of cheating, okay. But, mother, auntie, Lin Ke knew instantly that Antova's kindness was actually real kindness. Good guy. No wonder she always had a stern face and targeted him at any time. What the hell is the adversity plan? On the one hand, it makes Lin Ke feel kind, but on the other hand, it targets him everywhere. My auntie. Adversity is not used like this. How can you treat a child like this? You will cultivate a villain. And, auntie is too arrogant. If you want to pinch my face, just say it directly. Wow. Hey, that's not right. Sure enough, it seems that Antova can't hold it anymore. She stretched out her hand with a relaxed look on her face and pinched Lin Ke's face nervously on the surface. So this is why you, little guy. I always thought there was something wrong with the adversity plan. With Lin Ke's strength as a second level professional, he can completely avoid Antova's pinching of the face. However, thinking of his misunderstanding of Antova and Antova's honesty to Feudal at the beginning, Lin Ke forgave Antova. Not to mention that Antova's good thoughts finally overcame her evil thoughts. Just to say that Antova was honest with Feudal and secretly cared about him. Lin Ke, over the years, she could be regarded as Lin Ke's elder. But that damn adversity plan. Lin Ke was upset. What a bit. Reading novels? What connection does reading novels have with reality? What kind of idiot would read novels? Really? Lin Ke was ready to kill Antova several times, but fortunately she held back. That, mother, auntie, I have something to do. I'll go out first. You guys are busy. Lin Ke couldn't stand it anymore. The key is that he was so ashamed inside. So he hurriedly fled out of the room. The two people left in the room laughed and laughed happily. Feudal laughed with relief. After all, she always knew that Lin Ke had a prejudice against Antova, and she also knew that it was caused by the adversity plan. But she also felt that what her sister said made sense, and that she wanted Lin Ke to grow up in adversity, so she reluctantly agreed. Antova also laughed happily, very happy. Lin Ke came out, and the servants were still shuttling back and forth with nervous faces. The nobles should leave or stay at this time, and there are not many people staying in the guest rooms. At this time, Lin Ke went to find the busy butler Billy. Uncle Billy, did Viscount Garros tell you the occupational ratio of knights? Lin Ke looked at Butler Billy with a serious face, and there was a hint of expectation in his eyes. Butler Billy nodded slightly. Yes, young master, but you have taken office. That's good. Come and tell me. Lin Ke's eyes lit up. Sure enough, there is. He said, as Garrow's most trusted person. How could Billy, the butler who stayed to protect him and Fron, not have a knight ratio? Butler Billy pondered for a while after hearing this, and thought of Lin Ke's intelligence and Orth's level, and stopped thinking about it. He knew that Lin Ke must know that one cannot take up too many occupations. So, Butler Billy took Lin Ke to a chair and sat down, and spoke with emotion. Once, the master was just a baronet, and then he met Mrs. Furlong. Lin Ke did not interrupt, and listened quietly to Butler Billy. It was rare that Butler Billy would tell him about Garrow's past. After hearing the latter, Lin Ke could not help but admire Garrow's courage. Garrow's rise was accidental. At the beginning, Garrow's was wholeheartedly becoming a strong man, and accidentally met the Grand Duke of Deep Blue, and was appreciated by the Grand Duke of Deep Blue, and since then embarked on the road of strength and conquest. Then, Garrow's, who was injured and unconscious, was rescued by Furlong, and the Grand Duke of Deep Blue's soldiers for Garrow's were also defeated, and he could only make a comeback by borrowing money. Then, the two met in Tower, and Tower finally ran away with Garrow's. Speaking of which, the way they divide the first and second wives is that whoever is older is the first wife, and the other is the younger sister. Speaking of which, the Centaur actually eloped. After talking for half an hour, Butler Billy finally told the story in general. As the butler who Garrow's trusted the most, and followed Garrow's for the longest time, Billy knew the most information about Garrow's. He also told Lin Ke about the professional ratio of knight. Inside the castle, in the study, charge, faith, mount. Lin Ke carefully comprehended the inner meaning of these three characteristics. Butler Billy told him that for knight, faith is the most important core characteristic of knight. Garrow's faith chose fearlessness as the core belief, which is extremely powerful when charging, and this is also the choice of most knights. Some other knights also chose loyalty, justice, mercy and many other beliefs as beliefs. In addition to faith, the two major characteristics of charge and mount are also very important. Knights are not horse archers. Whether they are heavy cavalry or light cavalry, charging is very important. And the mount is the top priority. The important thing about the mount is not whether it is powerful or rare, but suitable. The suitable one is the best. After training or fighting, and understanding these two characteristics, one can become a knight. In this way, Lin Ke now needs to choose a belief as the core to support the knight characteristics, and then choose an excellent mount. However, Azanan has always produced excellent mounts, that is, the Gira cows of the Gira ranch. Cows can provide good milk production, and bulls are excellent mounts. Some cattle kings of ranches may even inspire themselves to become warcraft, such as Garrow's knight. Mounts are all composed of Gila bulls. However, it also takes a good eye. Lin Ke sat down and then began to write on a piece of paper. In the previous life, there was a knight's code: humility, integrity, mercy, bravery, justice, sacrifice, honor, and soul. However, after writing it down, Lin Ke crossed it all out and wrote some words again: freedom, equality, justice, rule of law, harmony, integrity, friendliness, dedication, core values. Finally, Lin Ke stared at these words and sat at the table in silence. He picked up the pen and wrote down 2 words. These 2 words were his faith. Chapter 108: The Great Wall of the Fortress. Looking through history books, the decline or rise of a dynasty will always show signs at the beginning. The fuse at the beginning may be a trivial battle, an unequal transaction, or the death of a small person. However, most of these ordinary people are in the Lushan Mountain and do not know the true face and cannot look at the changes in the long river of time and space from the perspective of gods or legends. Most people can only be swept forward under the impact of the huge waves of fate, and only when someone looks back 100 years later will they sigh. Does that little person know that the incident is a sign of the rise of a great country? September, the last small month of the flowing fire moon. The Kingdom of Gira. For more than a month, storms broke out in the territory of Azan and many surrounding territories. The Lady of Tide has fallen. The lava swamp riots. The attack of the Star and Wave Ocean is also imminent, and it may be advanced because of this. One after another, the entire southern part of the Gila kingdom was in turmoil. Some corrupt and timid nobles heard the news and moved towards the northern imperial capital Abyss to avoid the war. There were also nobles who trusted the strength of the Gila kingdom very much and did not move or tried to take advantage of the situation. Only a small number of nobles and professionals set off without hesitation and marched south. The turmoil in the Gila kingdom also attracted the attention of the Holy Life Alliance and the Permafrost Parliament, and even some small kingdoms, small principalities or other small forces on the mainland noticed it. Of course, they only noticed it. Just like some small islands in the previous life, noticed that the overlords were arm wrestling, they could only cheer on the side, to create a sense of presence and participation. The same is true for Natsum. The forces of the entire continent are just eating melons on the side. Only the Gila kingdom, the party involved, began to mobilize urgently internally. For many years, the people of Nassau have focused on acquiring, developing, and ruling new plains, and have not paid much attention to the situation in the main plain Nassau. Now, the lava swamp has attracted the attention of the whole Gila kingdom. What a courage! Although the lava swamp is one of the 3 major gathering places for magic beasts in Nassau, it is a Gila kingdom, the human kingdom ruled by the king of black and white Woomian emperor, the ultimate black and the brilliant white. Except for some cowards, many nobles are paying attention to the situation here. Just when the Gila kingdom was in turmoil, strangely, the great swamp was calm for 2 months. The first wave of magic beasts that Lin Ke and others thought did not come. During this period, no wild beasts ran out of it, let alone magic beasts. In contrast, the territory of Azan was in full swing. 6 kilometers away from Azan Castle. This is a wasteland, and the great swamp in the distance can be vaguely seen. Countless migrant workers, farmers, slaves, servants and other ordinary people, like ants, are carrying boulders, wood and other things. And in the front, a long city wall is being built. Judging from the prototype, this wall is not as tall and magnificent as some castles, but it seems to stretch for a long time, with no end in sight. Looking down from a high place, it is shocking. A large number of Azan people, refugees, slaves, etc. were conscripted, and at the same time, there were hundreds of brick kilns behind this wall that kept firing bricks day and night. The river next to Azan Castle was almost emptied of mud and sand to make bricks. The entire river was widened dozens of times, and the effect is also obvious. This wall is extending to both sides at a speed visible to the naked eye every day. In addition to ordinary people, some professionals are also working. Secret scribe, architect, and other professionals are waving their own magic props to outline secret words and magic patterns such as solid, heavy, and destroying magic on the wall. Forger blacksmith and other professionals are making various equipment and weapons. Knight and others are either checking their mounts, partners, equipment, and weapons, etc., or training and meditating. On the wall, various magical lights are flashing. At this time, Lin Ke was riding a Gila bull, inspecting all the guards and cavalry in front of him. Gila bulls are very large, and unlike cows, bulls have thicker and longer limbs, and their trunks are not so fat, looking like horses with bull heads. Although Lin Ke is small, the deterrence of being a third-level professional still makes the Gila bull, an ordinary animal, very obedient. At this time, Lin Ke was frowning, pulling the reins, and his voice was as low as possible. People of Azan, I will say it again for the last time, the battlefield is not a joke. If you disobey orders, in order to be able to enlighten your bloodline, you will not only lose your own lives, but also your wives, offspring, parents, will die because of this. In front of him, there were 2 groups of people standing in distinct shapes and colors. On one side were some of his castle guards, who stood at attention meticulously and looked forward. On the other side were the militiamen he recruited from various places in Azan. At this time, he was giving a lecture to those militiamen. Although these militiamen were courageous, their goal was too strong, which was to get bloodline enlightenment from Lin Ke. Yes, the enlightenment that was originally only for nobles, or granted by nobles, was publicized by Lin Ke as a prize. The skill of enlightenment can only be used by teacher professions, such as enlightenment teacher. Those who can afford teachers are either nobles or strong people themselves, so it is very difficult for ordinary people to have a way out. This is also related to the fact that the nobles consciously control the channels, and Lin Ke directly linked enlightenment with ASIN coins. Those who want to be enlightened will be enlightened by the star level professional, Lord AOF. The cost is 2000 ASIN coins. ASIN coins were originally used to measure the performance of mining slaves. But when Lin Ke first created this currency, it was not just for the performance of slaves. He was playing a big game. So, in just a few days, a lot of people heard about Lin Ke's generosity and came to join the army enthusiastically and organized a group of 2000 troops at once. But, calling them an army is too flattering. This group of people and humanoids was just a mob. Therefore, many nobles disagreed with Lin Ke's approach and even fiercely opposed it. But after Lin Ke enlightened 10 people with inferior talents, the nobles felt comfortable and relieved. Now, I will redistribute your belonging. Please step out if you hear your name. Lin Ke took out a piece of paper from the bag next to his mount, which recorded some general information. Alyosha, Chekhov, Gorky. While shouting, Lin Ke complained in his heart, if this team of people died, it would be a pity for the literary world. Here. Under Lin Ke's roll call, guards stepped out one by one. They were all castle guards who had been trained by Lin Ke for a long time and obeyed his orders. He was going to break up the troops and divide them into large teams and small teams. The captains were all soldiers he led, especially those who had participated in the siege of the deep blue giant tiger. Let these soldiers lead the mob, and if the soldiers are in trouble, the generals will be in trouble. I hope to train all these people before the war. After an hour, they were finally dispersed. Lin Ke looked at the new team with satisfaction. Although there was still chaos, the guards of ASIN Castle were like a stabilizing force, making the team orderly in the chaos. At this moment, a man riding a reindeer ran towards this side quickly, shouting, "Mr. Lin Ke, Princess Lin Ke and Earl of the Great Sword are waiting for you at the wall of ASIN." Lin Ke drove his mount and turned around, saying, "I know." After that, Lin Ke said to the former captain of the guards of ASIN, "Now the captain of the 1st Brigade, you train your team first. I want to see the results tonight." "Yes." The captain of the guard saluted with his right hand hitting his chest. Lin Ke nodded slightly and then ran towards the top of the wall at the edge of the center. "Did Princess Lin Ke find anything?" Lin Ke stood side by side with the summoner and asked casually. "Yes, Mr. Lin Ke." The summoned soldier looked a little nervous. "A new group of adults has arrived. They are other nobles of the kingdom." Other nobles. In the past few months, nobles have come in groups one after another. Although the number is not large, they have brought a lot of soldiers. "Are there any powerful professionals?" Lin Ke asked. "Yes. It is said that there are powerful florists, brewers, instructors, masters of painting, juice tasters." The summoned soldier mentioned a lot of professions. In the common language of Nasang, the special pronunciation of professionals is different from the ordinary pronunciation. You can clearly hear whether a person is talking about a florist or a florist. Should I say, he is worthy of being a good for nothing. What is this? Barbecue? Well, but that instructor is still useful. Lin Ke muttered softly, then waved to the summoned soldier. "Okay, you go and get busy." The summoned soldier saluted with a chest-beating salute, then rode the reindeer to run to other teams in the distance. Lin Ke's direction remained unchanged, that is, the highest part of the fortress, ASIN Wall. This fortress is obviously an imitation of the Great Wall, but it is larger in scale and has higher walls. Of course, the defense line is not that long. However, many people still call the Great Wall the Great Wall. It is because few people in Nasang are willing to build such a long distance defense line. Everyone is more willing to build a few more floors for their castles, or build more buildings in private planes. As a result, in the eyes of many nobles, the architectural concept, architectural ideas and final products of this Great Wall are full of surprise. In order to make these nobles contribute more money and effort, Lin Ke also proposed naming rights. Whoever builds this wall can have the right to name it. And Lin Ke also named the wall at the front and highest point of the defense line ASIN Wall. So, the nobles were jealous. Think about it, now the entire Gila kingdom has been alarmed, and even the major forces in the Nathan continent have paid a lot of attention to this place. Not long after, Emperor Wumian personally led the expedition, and a large number of nobles and professionals arrived. When they heard that the wall standing at the front of the defense line belonged to Azan, when they saw the flesh and blood of the endless monsters and the blood and tears of the warriors preserved on the wall, when they heard how this family bravely repelled the enemy. Damn, how much glory it was. The nobles couldn't wait to see the envy, jealousy, and admiration in the eyes of those noble friends or enemies when they saw the other walls behind Azan being named. As for Azan, that was the person protected by Princess Lin Ke, and the nobles should naturally regard the Azan wall as the wall of the Gila royal family. Thinking of this, Lin Ke couldn't help but smile. The nobles can never escape fame and fortune. After Lin Ke's operation, the nobles donated money, food, and people, which led to the construction of the Great Wall so quickly. Of course, there is still a long way to go before the Great Wall that Lin Ke imagined. So when he heard Princess Lin Ke's summons at this time, Lin Ke was not nervous at all. However, when he saw the nobles discussing fiercely on the top of the wall not far away, Lin Ke's heart sank. A bunch of good-for-nothings. I hope they can be put to good use. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Sand Table Simulation. Every person who was working, whether professional or ordinary, would salute Lin Ke when they saw him. Lin Ke would also return the salute meticulously. After getting off the Gila bull, Lin Ke moved his two short legs to thump up the stairs. The tower was very high, and it took him a long time to climb up. Sometimes Lin Ke would feel the inconvenience of his age. Some nobles would despise him, and some would simply ignore him, especially among the nobles who had arrived in the past few days. Fortunately, with the support of Count Giant Sword, Count Acre and Princess Lin Ke, Lin Ke could barely speak among the nobles. We must attack. Give those beasts a good beating. That's right. We must win a good battle before His Majesty arrives. I object. There are many monsters in the Great Swamp, and even more wild beasts. We can't kill them all. Yes. What we have to do is to defend the Great Wall. The nobles argued fiercely, each holding their own opinions. When Lin Ke arrived, the scene was still intense, but Lin Ke clearly felt that everyone's attention was focused on him. Some nobles even said intentionally or unintentionally, "Hey, the Great Wall. Who gave it the name? The ignorant little noble named it?" Then the group of nobles started arguing about the name of the Great Wall. Lin Ke's face was as calm as water. He looked around and saw Princess Lin Ke standing quietly at the front of the city wall, staring at the great swamp in the distance, with her hands on a gorgeous pink scepter. "Hey, isn't this the heir of the famous Viscount Azanan? Hello, Mr. Lin Ke. I come from the distant Viscount Bella family, whose child is left here. I have a suggestion. We can't let children participate in the war." A group of nobles greeted Lin Ke one after another, either maliciously or sarcastically. Some people heard Lin Ke's declaration of taking the lead in the charge and admired him. Some nobles just felt that Lin Ke stole the limelight and were jealous. It can be said that at this most critical moment, Lin Ke not only had to guard against the monsters on the front line, but also had to be careful of some nobles who were maliciously dragging their feet or picking peaches. Most of these nobles arrived one after another this month. Lin Ke's face remained unchanged, his lips were tightly pursed, and he walked towards Princess Lin Ke with a calm face. Step by step, calm and peaceful. The people who blocked his way gradually stopped arguing. Some were surprised and doubtful, some had murderous eyes, and some secretly admired. No matter how their faces changed, they couldn't help but make way for Lin Ke. Even if he was just an heir to the nobility, everyone knew that this Lin Ke had the most ancient noble glory, which was the great glory of the human ancestors who snatched the land of life from the hands of aliens. In the face of such glory, no matter how small the thoughts were, they could not stop such nobles from fulfilling their responsibilities and obligations. It would be better to block Lin Ke's progress and be spurned by other nobles. The most important thing is that stopping Lin Ke is equivalent to denying the existence of these nobles' own glory. So, Lin Ke, who was only 6 years old, walked through the passage made by the nobles unimpeded and came to Princess Lika's side, looking into the distance together. After Lin Ke stood still, the nobles behind him started arguing again, but their sentences were a little incoherent. Damn monsters. I suggest killing them all. I remember Mr. Andrew said that the glory belongs to our family. Bullshit, Mr. Andrew didn't say that. By the way, my youngest son will also go to the battlefield. Lead the charge. By the way, the price of iron ore is very high recently. I mean, last night's dinner was very good. Yes, it was good. By the way, look at this cloud. It's big and round. That's right. That's right. This reindeer has been with me for 3 years. It's very greedy. The nobles were talking incoherently, and Lin Ke knew why they were like that. Because their attention had begun to focus on Lin Ke and Lika, so they were talking incoherently. Lin Ke stood still. You're here. Princess Lika crossed her hands, gently leaned on the scepter, and her voice was very calm. I'm here. Lin Ke still looked straight ahead, looking at the forest in the distance. You shouldn't have come. I'm here after all. You're in the wrong place. I have to come. The nobles' voices gradually became quieter, and they all frowned in thought. Old swordsman, what are the princess and that kid talking about? Why can't I understand? A short and sturdy man with a big beard poked the great sword count next to him with his elbow. The great sword count had a black giant sword behind him at this time, and his face was still cold. Hearing the question next to him, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes and said, Her Royal Highness and Mr. Lin Ke are talking about the most ancient noble glory. Her Royal Highness admires Mr. Lin Ke's talent, but also pity Mr. Lin Ke's young age. Mr. Lin Ke said that this is his noble honor, so he must come. The voice of the great sword count was neither loud nor soft, so that all the nobles around could hear it. Then, they couldn't help but respect the 2 children in front of them. So that's it. Damn, I really didn't inherit the wisdom of my human father. The bearded short fat man next to the great sword count suddenly realized something, patted the great sword count's waist heavily, and said in admiration, as expected of Her Royal Highness, Princess. Well, that boy's not bad either. The other nobles nodded secretly, and were surprised at the wisdom of the great sword count. This kind of sharp words are usually only reflected in wise and elderly nobles, and only people with equal wisdom can understand it. Some nobles began to think secretly whether to change their relationship with their neighbor, the great sword count. However, at this moment, Lin Ke and the others suddenly changed their sentences. You come, you come, you come, come what it is, I forgot. Princess Lika's face was still calm, but she suddenly turned to look at Lin Ke. She bit her lower lip lightly, her light green pupils were full of innocence, and her face was pitiful. Lin Ke looked at the forest in the distance and his expression changed. His eyes widened instantly, and he almost couldn't catch his breath. Damn. What a pit. You can't even remember these few words? Exclamation mark. The nobles behind him were also suddenly stunned, always feeling that they had heard something incredible. The short and fat bearded man next to the Count of Giant Sword also raised his eyebrows, and then looked at the giant sword next to him with a bad face. The Count of Giant Sword coughed dryly, ignoring the awkwardness of the scene, and said slowly, You have heard of it, right? Mr. Andrew said that forgetting is the highest state, which makes me think of my encounter with my lover. That is really. Just as the nobles were getting more and more suspicious, Lin Ke turned around in an instant, and with a big hand, a small hand, he took out a big table from the ring on his hand, and placed it next to everyone. This space ring was given to him by Lika as a small gift for cooperation with Lin Ke, but Lika intentionally or unintentionally put it on Lin Ke's middle finger to represent engagement. Your Highness, there is no need to say more. Let's take a look at the current situation of the Great Swamp. Lin Ke strode to the table he had just taken out, and his voice was loud. The nobles' minds were immediately attracted to the table. Lin Ke pointed at the table and said, This is the battle command table I made, also called a sand table simulation table. On the table, there were mountains, rivers, forests, swamps, and the Great Wall representing their location. Sand table simulation. The nobles stared with wide eyes. Chapter 110 Lin Ke's combat thinking. Battle command table? The nobles were full of curiosity, and some brave nobles saw the wonderful use of this battle command table. That is, it can directly present the battlefield form. This kind of thing is very ordinary, but also very practical. In the past, nobles generally collected information through the skills and magic attached to their professions. But now it seems that this kind of thing is not bad. What news did the scouts bring? Lin Ke first asked the nobles, and then looked at Lin Ke. Princess Lin Ke immediately replied, the scouts said that no breath above the legendary level has been detected within 3 kilometers of the Great Swamp. If there is no legend above, it's okay. Lin Ke breathed a sigh of relief when he heard it. In this way, there is still a chance to win big with a small investment. And Lin Ke glanced at Lin Ke. Lin Ke still has something to fight against legends, and the Nasan joint agreement says that legends cannot be released. Well, it seems safe for the time being. Then Lin Ke strode to the front of the combat command table, moved a small stool, stood on it, pointed to the sand table in front and said, our Great Wall is here, and the front is basically an endless wasteland. There was an endless wall on the sand table, which was the Great Wall, and on the other side was a large swamp decorated with broccoli. Lin Ke took out a thin wooden stick from the space ring and pointed to some small wooden blocks behind the Great Wall on the sand table, representing their army. A small wooden block represents a battalion. A battalion has 2,000 people, a squad has 100 people, and 10 battalions represent a company. Lin Ke first briefly explained his classification of troops, and then began to tell his thoughts. My idea is that the Azanan wasteland is endless and easy to attack, but difficult to defend. We need to set traps in front of the Great Wall, magic traps and ordinary traps. Lin Ke spoke out his thoughts over the past 2 days, and while speaking, he moved the wooden blocks to the corresponding positions. The nobles were originally just curious, but at this time they were attracted by Lin Ke's words. Magic traps, Chevork's defries, automatic continuous arrow shooting, digging pits and ambushes. All kinds of tactics came out of Lin Ke's mouth, and the nobles were stunned. After speaking, Lin Ke looked at everyone nervously, and said calmly, what do you think? What's wrong with this kid's brain? I really want to open his head and see. The bearded short fat man next to the great sword earl couldn't help muttering to himself. The other nobles agreed. This is Nasan. What everyone pursues is a cooperation of various professions in the pursuit of supreme power. No matter how many ordinary people there are, it is difficult to hurt a legend. This also leads to the fact that the tactical system here is actually very lacking. You must know that in Lin Ke's previous life, in ancient times, there were all kinds of military strategies, conspiracies, tactics, strategies, and strange and lewd skills. There were countless. But that was because the difference in individual force values was not too big. No matter how powerful Lubu and Zhang Fei were, it was impossible for one person to destroy a city. And Asing, let alone a legend, even a star level like AOF could directly destroy the Parrot City with one blow. The difference in power is not big, so this led to the birth of various supreme military tactics in the previous life. The difference in power is big, and one force can directly break all methods. And now, Lin Ke's endless battle ideas and deployment level have shocked everyone. Under Lin Ke's expectant eyes, a group of nobles suddenly looked a little embarrassed. They rarely come into contact with these. Except for a few people like the Great Sword Earl, the others are basically inherited titles. Even for the Great Sword Earl, only a few can understand Lin Ke's tactics, and most of the others are still confused. Seeing that everyone was silent, Lin Ke thought that the knowledge he knew in his previous life was inconsistent with this place. His heart tightened, and his eyes looked at Earl Ackley. Mr. Ackley, what do you think? The eyes of the nobles swish over. Ackley stiffened and blinked. I'm not very familiar with the businessman. I think. By the way, Earl Ackley seems to have something to say. He immediately pointed to the Great Sword Earl next to him. The Great Sword Count had a grim expression, and frowned as he saw this. Well, my idea is that after saying that for a long time, the Great Sword Count didn't come up with that, and finally he decided to follow the idea of fighting in the past. Why don't we wait for the legendary gentleman to arrive, and then directly fight into the Great Swamp? Lin Ke's face was stunned, and the Great Sword Count's old face blushed. What do you think, Old Thorn? The great sword count hurriedly looked at the bearded short fat man next to him. The bearded short fat man was not embarrassed and said directly, "Just wait for His Majesty Wumian to come, and then wait for him to kill those beasts, and then we will attack." "That's right. That's right. I agree." The bearded short fat man's words immediately catered to the voices of the nobles around him, so they all spoke in agreement. Lin Ke was stunned, and then he lowered his head in thought in an instant. This group of people, I'm afraid they are not fools, right? Just as Lin Ke was thinking, Princess Lika's voice suddenly rang out. "Lin Ke, don't listen to their nonsense. Follow your ideas. You are the smartest here." Princess Lika walked over slowly, and the nobles were embarrassed but no one said anything. The most beloved daughter of Emperor Wumian, who dared to say anything? She was not afraid of the nobles, and said bluntly, "I didn't understand a word you said just now. My father said that 80% of the nobles in the Black and White Kingdom are idiots. So, arrange it according to your ideas." After saying this, Lin Ke raised his eyebrows and looked around. The nobles did not respond, so Lin Ke was relieved. Then he immediately glared at Princess Lika, and his eyes signaled, "Don't talk nonsense." Lika looked innocent. "I dare not order my father." Lin Ke was helpless. "I'm not saying that your father is talking nonsense. I'm talking about you." If it was Princess Lika who said that the nobles were idiots, the morale of the nobles would probably plummet. At this time, this sentence was said by Emperor Wumian, so the nobles began to ponder. A full 20% of the nobles are not idiots. Then I shouldn't be that 80%. The nobles talked to themselves, then smiled and looked at the people around them. No matter who they looked at, it seemed like they were looking at 80%, except for themselves. Lin Ke was speechless at this time, so he spoke again. "Then please hand over the military power in your hands to me, and I will coordinate and allocate it." After that, Lin Ke couldn't help but add, "Of course, it's only during the war. When His Majesty Wumian arrives, I will return it to everyone." Although the nobles didn't have much wisdom, they still knew what military power represented, and originally wanted to refuse directly. Princess Lika spoke again at this time. "Why, one or two don't want to hand it over? If your territory is lost by then, I will tell my father why." So the nobles finally made up their minds. Lin Ke's command thinking, and the sentence "return it when Wumian arrives," plus Lika's threat. Everyone had to agree, even if they were powerful. After all, they were just some small nobles. So far, there is no noble above the rank of Marquis in the Great Wall. Most of them are barons, viscounts, and earl families. However, it's good to have military power. Lin Ke took a deep breath, and the big stone in his heart finally fell. Although there were some flaws in today's performance from Princess Lika, the subsequent series of cooperation was still good. Finally, Lin Ke could take power according to his own ideas. The possibility of preserving the Azanan territory has greatly increased. Chapter 111 Team Integration. So, this time, Lin Ke explained his battle ideas to everyone again. 36 strategies of war. Guerrilla warfare. Tunnel warfare. Fortress warfare. Lin Ke was very rich in theoretical knowledge, and proposed one battle method after another. These nobles were also very surprised. At the same time, people with practical experience like the Count of Giant Sword tried hard to understand and keep up with Lin Ke's ideas, and were able to put forward some insights. Most people just stood there stupidly. In particular, some nobles had titles, but they were inherited, their own strength was very weak, and their brains were not working well. Princess Lika yawned all the time, and rolled her eyes due to sleepiness. However, the final strategy was finally decided. "Then it's settled. Let's gather everyone first, and then discuss the team division." Lin Ke slammed the table, startling some sleepy nobles nearby. "The strategy has been decided. Now, I will reorganize the troops. Please gather your subordinates and gather at the foot of the Azan wall. There is only 1 hour. After saying that, Lin Ke frowned, then waved his sleeves, and strode to the foot of the city wall. The military literacy of these nobles is too poor. No wonder they all stay at the border of the Black and White Kingdom to retire. After waking up, Princess Lika quickly wiped the crystal from the corners of her mouth, and then followed Lin Ke. The other nobles looked at each other, and then left in 2s and 3s. They were convinced by Lin Ke. Before, they thought that Lin Ke was young, and how could he command such a legion-level war? Now, it seems that this little country lord is very wise. Some people even speculate that Lin Ke's bloodline is probably the top one. This kind of top bloodline will have unlimited achievements in the future. So these nobles also went to gather people and horses very tactfully, and there were also clerks to notify some nobles who did not come, such as the son of the Marquis of Ice. Under the wall, little Lin Ke. Did I do well today? Princess Rika, with saliva still on the corners of her mouth, approached Lin Ke with a guilty look on her face, but pretending to be calm. Lin Ke looked at her unhappily and said nothing, but motioned for her to follow. Princess Rika stuck out her tongue playfully, then followed Lin Ke's footsteps without saying much. Behind Rika, the nobles were amazed to see Princess Rika like this. Princess Rika's personality is different from the rumors they have heard. But when they thought that it was Lin Ke, the nobles were relieved. This Lin Ke is very evil. At this time, Lin Ke took advantage of the nobles' inattention and whispered to Lin Ke quickly, I asked you to send a letter to ask. QQ bird has returned, but there is a seal on the letter. It should be that only you can open it. Go to the castle to get it. After saying that, Lin Ke glanced at the nobles who were dispersing and said again, they just agreed to hand over the military power to quickly. I suspect that there may be something wrong later. You go and come back quickly. Princess Lin Ke didn't say anything, just nodded slightly, and then went to the direction of Azan Castle. And Lin Ke naturally came to the training ground quickly with a normal expression. At this time, the people in the training ground were already training, and the training content was exactly what Lin Ke had trained the castle guards before. Report. The former leader of a group in Azan Castle, now the captain of the 1st Brigade, came forward to report. Lin Ke rode the Gila Bull and went forward. How is it? Are all the teams familiar with each other? Report to the commander. Familiar. The captain first replied with a light shout, assemble. At this time, the people on the training ground were originally standing in groups chatting and getting familiar with each other. After hearing the captain's voice, they immediately gathered around. Looking at the militiamen standing in a row in front of him, Lin Ke nodded with satisfaction. At least these militiamen abide by discipline. Discipline. This is the most important thing for my Azan army. Lin Ke rode on the Gila Bull and looked at the rows of people in front of him. Although he was young, he had a majestic aura. Everyone must obey the orders of their superiors. The team members must obey the team leader, and the team leader must obey the captain. At the same time, everyone needs to obey my orders, Lin Ke said, but the militiamen in front of him did not react. As the people of Azan's territory, they were used to obeying the nobles, especially local nobles like Lin Ke. While Lin Ke was giving a lecture, he was also teaching them some simple commands and training them, such as standing at ease. Not long after, the nobles came with their people one after another. From those formations, Lin Ke could see which nobles were strong in military and which were completely lame. The first to arrive was the team of the Count of Giant Sword, and the other teams were still far away. It can be seen that the Count of Giant Sword was actually well prepared. Lin Ke, my troops are in your hands. Count Giant Sword was determined to have a good relationship with Lin Ke. Lin Ke had a special message from Emperor Wumian, which meant that someone as busy as Emperor Wumian actually paid attention to a child who was just the heir of a country viscount. Coupled with Lin Ke's talent and intelligence, as well as the existence of AOF, Lin Ke's future became bright. People like Count Curly also had the same idea. These nobles were cunning. Uncle Giant Sword, your people. Lin Ke saw that among the people brought by Count Giant Sword, the leader was a strong man in armor. This was the strong man in armor who came to Lin Ke at the beginning and had some minor conflicts. Count Giant Sword smiled when he heard this and pointed at the strong man in armor sitting on the warhorse. Armor, didn't you say you would come to apologize to Lin Ke in person? The strong man in armor over there got off the warhorse in a serious manner and came to Lin Ke. The armored man looked at Lin Ke riding on the Gila Bull and was silent for a while. The noisy voices around him stopped. It was quiet. Mr. Lin Ke, I didn't know your qualities and abilities before, and I'm sorry for offending you. As he said that, the armored man took off his helmet, revealing a resolute face, stood up straight, and pounded his chest with his right hand. Lin Ke didn't speak at first, looking directly into the armored man's eyes, with a calm face. The scene was deadlocked, and the great sword earl looked normal, and didn't say a word. but the soldiers behind the great sword earl quietly put their hands on the hilt of the sword. The guards behind Lin Ke stood still, because the first thing they learned today was discipline and obeying orders. The great sword earl looked at the difference between the two sides and sighed secretly. On the one hand, seeing this tense scene and being prepared, the soldiers of the great sword earl should be some old timers who have experienced war. But on the other hand, it also shows that the soldiers under the great sword earl do not abide by discipline and will act on their own. You know, after experiencing war, the last thing that is lacking in the main plane of Nasan is war. After a few battles, these soldiers of Lin Ke will change. However, in terms of discipline and obedience, the subordinates of Count Giant Sword are a little worse. After all, the rise of Count Giant Sword's family depends on Count Giant Sword himself. And the Azin family, where Lin Ke belongs, has been operating the territory for many years. So the people in Azin's territory are very willing to obey Lin Ke. At this time, Lin Ke, who was in a stalemate, suddenly laughed twice, then kept a warm smile on his face, and jumped off the back of the bull. Uncle Giant Sword and I have a deep friendship, and there is nothing between you and me. Get up, get up. Lin Ke reached out to support the armor. The armor then stood up from the ground. Lin Ke's body only reached the thigh of armor, so he had to look up. From now on, there is no need to mention the past. Armor's resolute face relaxed a little, and he said in a serious tone, "Thank you, Mr. Lin Ke, for your forgiveness." The great sword earl watched Lin Ke's actions, and his admiration for Lin Ke deepened. Just as Lin Ke received the great sword earl's army, the armies of other nobles also arrived one after another. Chapter 112, The Studious Laplace. Inside the Great Wall, in the training ground, the various armies in front of Lin Ke have distinct characteristics. There are several types of cavalry alone, not to mention the professionals. Some ride reindeer, some ride horses, and some even ride wolves. For example, Azan is a Gila bull. Although Azan's title is not high, the Gila bull is named Gila. Gila bulls are only black and white, and are actually black and white cows. Bulls are all shaped like horses, strong and agile, and cows are plump, and have abundant milk. This is also the reason why Geros did not choose to build a castle in other places, but chose here now. There is a Gila pasture, and it can guard the border of Azan. The geographical location of the castle is very good. Mr. Lin Ke, this is my Shining Wolf Knights, who are extremely brave on the battlefield. A short bearded man rode a huge wolf and ran over. Your Shining Wolf Knights mounts are really good. Count Akali next to him said sourly, we are just ordinary infantry. Ordinary? Lin Ke took a closer look. These thousands of infantrymen wore light black helmets with magic lights shining on them. They were all second level magic items. There were also first level walnut crossbows, first level full body armor, second level black iron one-handed swords, second level solid boots, and third level oak shields. Looking at the infantrymen themselves, they were also professionals of the lowest level and the highest level. You are good. If you don't have equipment, you can be beaten by my Flash Wolf regiment in one charge. The big bearded man choked Akali unceremoniously. If you don't have mount, you dare not approach my Akali infantry regiment. Akali also choked back. Okay, don't say any more. The great sword earl next to Lin Ke interrupted the two helplessly. What are these two people doing? One is showing off his background, and the other is showing off his wealth. Lin Ke rode on the Gila bull with a helpless smile on his face. The big bearded man is the Black Claw Earl. Only one of his parents is human, and the other is a humanoid. So he relied on the blood of the Black Claw werewolf in his body to successfully form an elite army, and was promoted to Earl. The territory of the Count of Black Claw is in the northwest. The purpose of coming all the way here is actually to bring new soldiers, to practice and see blood. Of course, the Count of Black Claw can obviously train soldiers in other places, or in his own secondary plane. There are two main reasons for coming here to train soldiers. One is that fighting in Nasan can gain more appreciation from the Gila royal family. Maybe the Emperor Wumian will reward him with a plane, because of his bravery. The other reason is that Nasan is special as a main plane. The reason why Nasan is called the main plane is because of the professional system. Fighting with magicians and warriors in the secondary plane is like fighting with hot weapons and cold weapons, which can't achieve the effect of training soldiers at all. Only the battle between professionals, can really train soldiers. And Assen has not had a large-scale war for a long time. This time, the fall of Lady Tide made many visionary people choose to come here to train soldiers. Teacher. I solved that problem. Lin Ke, who was thinking, was suddenly interrupted by a burst of shouts, and turned his head. The son of the Marquis of Ice was riding a reindeer, holding a stack of papyrus produced by Assen, which was densely recorded. I told you, I'm not your teacher. Seeing Laplace, Lin Ke was a little helpless. Laplace came back to join the war with blood, and said that his father would definitely bring troops to support. But the reality is, that his Marquis of Ice only brought one sentence, that is, adults always have to pay for their actions. Then, Laplace had no choice. But he stayed with a backbone, and by the way, he was shameless, and stuck to Lin Ke all day long. Yes, this dead straight man didn't stick to Princess Rika, but to Lin Ke, asking him all kinds of math questions. In a rage, Lin Ke gave him 20 must-do-key questions for elementary school students, and now it seems that Laplace has finished them. Teacher Lin Ke, please look at the questions this time. I think I have learned it. Laplace rode a reindeer and ran over in front of everyone, and then excitedly slammed a stack of papers into Lin Ke's face. Laplace, can you wait a moment? Lin Ke's face was full of black lines, and he just wanted to slap him twice. This kind of papyrus is very rough. It hurts if it hits your face directly. Okay, teacher. Then I'll wait by the side. Laplace looked obedient, and then walked to the Great Wall, as if no one was there. How long has Laplace been like this? It is said that it has been a long time. The Marquis of Ice is also relieved to let his only son mess around here. If it were my kids, I think the Marquis of Ice is very courageous. You know, wildflowers that have been hit by mountain rains are more resilient. But Laplace is so humble to Lin Ke, it's too embarrassing. The nobles talked about it and discussed Laplace's behavior in a low voice. Laplace listened to everyone's words all the way, and then came to the Great Wall, got off the deer, and stood still. At the same time, he sneered in his heart. This group of arrogant, stupid, and short-sighted nobles. Others don't know, but he knows best how powerful Lin Ke, who just turned 6 years old, is. Not to mention, that Lin Ke integrated and retained so many nobles to garrison here by his own efforts. Just say that Mr. Orth, Lin Ke's teacher, was said to have come to enlighten him at the beginning, but in the end he was fooled by Lin Ke into the Assen family. And look at Lin Ke's paper mill. The paper produced is now universal in the vicinity of the Great Wall. It is lighter and easier to write than animal skin paper. Laplace, who signed the confidentiality agreement of the God's contract, knows that the process is said to be not difficult. In addition to Lin Ke's amazing talent, you know that Laplace's talent is already very good. Who knows that Lin Ke has almost reached the 3rd level of scholar in just a few months. And these reasons are actually not important to Laplace. The most important thing is Lin Ke's wisdom. Terrifying wisdom. Laplace has never seen such a smart person. No, such a wise person. Intelligence can be innate, but some experience, ways of dealing with things, insight. These are all wisdom. Like mathematics, intelligence alone is not enough. At least Laplace's original mathematician teacher is studying the problem. He estimates that Lin Ke can solve it. At that time, Lin Ke was only 6 years old and a 2nd level scholar. Thinking of this, Laplace tried to stand in a more obedient posture and moved his feet carefully so that Lin Ke could see it with a little peripheral vision. Well, I must follow Mr. Lin Ke well, and it would be best if I could become his disciple. I will soon be promoted to a 4th level mathematician. I will definitely become a legend in the future. But Mr. Lin Ke may not be willing to be my teacher. Well, why not let my father join the Assen family directly? Laplace began to imagine the future. Chapter 113 Rika's horrifying gift. Next to the training ground, Lin Ke drove Laplace away, touched his cheek that was rubbed by the papyrus, and then looked at the others. He counted and found that the nobles were basically all here. Looking around, there was a large crowd of people. He asked Laplace to roughly count that the total number of troops here was nearly 30,000. From ordinary refugees, civilians, to earls, marquis sons, and princesses, the total number must be far more than 30,000. Not to mention servants, slaves, and retinues. Fortunately, the interior of the Great Wall all the way to Azan Castle has been cleared, so it is naturally very spacious. However, if he needs to talk to everyone, Lin Ke must fly with the Servant of Truth, and he must also use the amplification technique. Of course, Lin Ke only needs to communicate with these 20 or so nobles now. Now let's organize the team and define everyone's functions and responsibilities. Lin Ke drove the Gillibull and approached the nobles. Some of these nobles rode mounts, some walked, and some sat in ox carts. Some of these nobles have the strength of level 7 or 8, some are only level 2 or 3, just like Lin Ke, and some are simply level 1. Some nobles call their friends and are surrounded by servants and maids, and some nobles follow guards with a majestic aura. Just from the appearance, Lin Ke can tell which nobles are strong and have powerful subordinates. Everyone, come on. Lin Ke walked to a suitable position and stood still. The Earl of Giant Sword and his friends naturally came forward. Princess Lin Ke didn't know where she went and hasn't come back yet. Some small nobles who are similar to Lin Ke also came forward and greeted him timidly, hoping to please Lin Ke. However, there are a few earls and viscounts who are proud of their status and did not come forward. Lin Ke didn't care. If the army has been assigned and they haven't joined yet, then they will be cannon fodder or fend for themselves. Everyone, hello. Lin Ke looked at the people who surrounded him and politely beat his chest. However, only some people returned the greeting. Viscount Mantis drove his warhorse forward and said indifferently, "You can surrender your military power, but our glorious team cannot be disbanded." Lin Ke narrowed his eyes when he heard this. Before, Viscount Mantis was like a little transparent person, but he didn't expect him to jump out now. Originally, Lin Ke wanted to break up these teams and use his own guards as team leaders to facilitate control and command. On a deeper level, it is easy for these noble armies to respect him. Of course, after the war, each noble must take it back, but at that time, Lin Ke will plant a seed in their hearts. For example, when the lords are fighting each other, if Lin Ke wins, it will be easy to receive the army of the opposite lord. After all, he was the team leader who used to get along with him day and night, and the general who used to be both kind and powerful. And if Lin Ke loses in that kind of war, to put it bluntly, those people will treat Lin Ke well, right? In addition to Lin Ke's future plans for the Azan territory, Lin Ke used a very challenging way for the nobles, that is, breaking the whole into parts, to deal with these troops. But the nobles are not fools, at least not all of them. Just now, with Princess Lin Ke here, plus the help of Earl of Giant Sword and others, and most importantly, Lin Ke's own military literacy and knowledge, the nobles could not say anything against it. But now, Princess Lin Ke is gone, and those people can't sit still. Viscount Mantis chose to speak at this time, which was also quite shrewd. At this time, Earl of Giant Sword spoke. Just now at the Wall of Azan, all the nobles agreed. "Are you going to betray the ancient glory of the contract?" As soon as these words came out, the nobles who were originally somewhat moved and wanted to support Viscount Mantis were shocked in their hearts. The glory of the contract. Keep your word. This is one of the foundations for the nobles, to maintain their own glory, honesty. Viscount Mantis wanted to speak again, but seeing the cold look of Earl of Giant Sword, he couldn't help but shrink back. The Great Sword Count is a powerful professional of level 16, and he is considered to be the top fighter among this group of nobles. Viscount Mantis is just a viscount, and he inherited it, so of course he has no right to talk back. Haha, you can't say that. However, at this moment, a deep voice sounded again. Everyone looked over. "Grizzly Count, what do you mean?" Before the Great Sword could speak, Black Claw Count shouted rather angrily, "Your grizzly jungle is right next to my castle. What? Do you still want to fight me? I'm here anytime." The Grizzly Count was tall and mighty, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, but he was not afraid of Black Claw Count. After provoking Black Claw, the Grizzly Count looked at Lin Ke again. "Lin Ke, I respect your qualities, but you are too young. And my grizzly cavalry have been trained by my family for 5 generations, and I can't let you mess with them at will." Lin Ke frowned, listened carefully, and didn't say anything. After the grizzled earl finished speaking, the Viscount Mantis, who had just retreated, jumped out again. "That's right. There are only 200 dual sword warriors in my family, and more than 100 of them were brutally killed by your father before. Why should I disperse them and listen to your command?" After speaking, the nobles began to whisper. What the grizzled Earl and Viscount Mantis said was indeed right. Whose army was not built up with great effort. Not to mention the professionals. Even the ordinary people's team is not easy to train. Now most of them come here to train soldiers, and for the materials and parts of the monsters. A small number of them responded to the call of the Sleepless Emperor, or because they were too close to the territory of Azan, they were afraid that the loss of Azan would affect their own territory. Only a very small number of them came for Lin Ke. Whether it was for Lin Ke's future prospects, to curry favor with AOF, or for Princess Lin Ke. But in the end, only a few people came for Lin Ke's words lead the charge. Therefore, at this time, the minds of these nobles were all pried open. Indeed, what Mance said makes sense. My archers are elite, and there are 2,000 pine bows. Andrew's leg, it's not easy to maintain. Wait, have you forgotten our promise to Princess Lin Ke? Princess Lin Ke can't represent everyone, right? Besides, she is just a princess. Even Emperor Wumian can't betray the ancient covenant. That's right. Lin Ke frowned, looked at the people who were talking, looked at the direction where Princess Lin Ke left in the distance, and finally turned his head to look at Viscount Mantis. This Viscount Mantis is a shrewd person. It seems that he needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. Just a few words just now, it has aroused everyone's little thoughts, which is really a bit sinister. However, this is not the time for Lin Ke to speak. So Lin Ke cast his eyes on Akali and the others. Akali blinked, and then spoke with a friendly face. "Everyone, let's not be too angry. Look, there are still some beasts on the opposite side of us who are eyeing us covetously." Pointing to the Great Wall. After saying this, the nobles' originally high spirits subsided. Count Giant Sword took this opportunity to say, "I think our wisdom and courage, I mean, at least in terms of war, may not be as good as Lin Ke's. So, are you going to lose to a 6-year-old child in the honor of integrity and magnanimity now?" As soon as these words came out, the little nobles immediately wavered. Viscount Mantis had retreated and said nothing at this time when he saw that the situation was not good. Count Grizzly spoke again. "We naturally know that Lin Ke is smart, but if we all want him to listen to him, he must be recognized by my knights, right?" Count Grizzly didn't know whether he was on Lin Ke's side, and there was not much targeting in his tone. Lin Ke also felt that Count Grizzly was right, and it was indeed important to convince his soldiers. But this was a bit difficult. There are several ways to convince Nasing's people. The simplest way is to use extremely strong force, such as the Emperor Wumian. For example, although Lin Ke could show his noble character later, it was too late. Including sharing Wheel and Woe, these were all methods that took effect too late. If you want to convince everyone quickly. Lin Ke was thinking frantically in his mind at this time, and he had the answer in his mind. Although he was not very willing to expose himself, but at this point, the best way to convince Nasing's people was actually. Lin Ke sighed in his heart, and opened his mouth to speak, but at this time another solemn voice sounded. "The Gira Kingdom belongs to the Wumian Emperor." The Gira Kingdom's message is very simple, because in most cases, it can be sent through the gods, and only in a few cases, will people be sent to send messages. And the messenger at this time was Princess Lin Ke. Princess Lin Ke stood on the city wall at some point, holding her scepter, with a solemn look. There was also a hummingbird-like bird on her shoulder, which was the cuckoo bird used by Nasing to send messages. Similar to Lin Ke's pigeon message in his previous life. Lin Ke was relieved immediately when he saw this. Caught up. What he asked Princess Lin Ke to do. "Pass on my father's order. All the wars between Azan and the lava swamp will be controlled by Count Lin Ke Azan, under the control of Princess Lin Ke, until the Emperor Wumian arrives in 2 months. Princess Lin Ke's voice is sweet and melodious, and as loud as a nightingale. It only sounds sweet. However, there was an uproar below. Power. The power was given to Lin Ke. There were many reasons why the nobles were unwilling to listen to Lin Ke before. Although they felt that Lin Ke had unlimited future and were willing to make friends, coupled with the support of Count Giant Sword and others, and the recognition of Princess Lin Ke could be regarded as a potential stock. But their military power is actually their lifeblood. Even if Lin Ke's own knowledge and wisdom, even if he has the quality and courage represented by the phrase leading the charge, compared with his own family, they are still unwilling. There are also a series of reasons including the Great Wall to leave a name, the supply of materials in the Azan territory, the existence of AOF, etc., which are not as important as the family. But now it is different. Emperor Wu Mian personally gave the order, ordering Lin Ke to be the commander of the front line. How can this be? Exclamation mark. And I remember, isn't the Azan family a Viscount family? A Viscount discovered the blind spot. Suddenly, everyone was shocked. Lin Ke was looking at Princess Lin Ke on the city wall at this time, but he frowned unconsciously. Where is the housekeeper curry behind Princess Lin Ke? Lin Ke suddenly had some guesses in his mind, but now was not the time to think about those. At this time, Princess Lin Ke paused for a moment, and before everyone thought about it, she spoke again. In addition, Lin Ke Azan is well organized on the front line, and Lord Daof has joined the Azan family, so Lin Ke Azan is named the Earl of the Kingdom of Gila. The fiefdom is increased to the entire lava swamp, conferring Lin Ke Azan as an Earl. Then the Azan family is not a Viscount family, but an Earl family. In the past, the promotion of nobles was often through the efforts of generations, and then accumulating financial resources, military forces through various methods. One day, when the whole family has the strength to fight against the 15th level, they can be promoted to Earl. To be promoted to Baron, one needs to have the strength to fight against the 5th level professional. The Viscount is the 10th level, the Earl is the 15th level, the Marquis is the 18th level, the Duke is the 20th level, and the Grand Duke is a legend or god. And now, the Viscount Azan family has been promoted to the Earl family, because of Lin Ke, or because of the existence of Lin Ke and Aofu. However, this is not the most exaggerated. After all, there are many lucky families that rise, because of one person. The most exaggerated thing is the increase of fiefdom. Fiefdom, lava swamp. The nobles around took a breath. That's the lava swamp. It's already comparable to a principality. Could it be that the sleepless emperor was angry about this incident, so he was ready to eliminate all the magic beast kings in the lava swamp in one fell swoop, and then incorporate the territory into the kingdom of Gila? There are countless magic beast kings above level 20 in the lava swamp. It is one of the 3 major magic beast gathering places in Nassam. No force has ever been able to incorporate this kind of magic beast gathering place into its territory. Moreover, such a large territory is actually going to be handed over to Azan, a small country family. You should know that in the past, when nobles were promoted, Emperor Wu Mian would usually choose to reward a secondary plane as a fiefdom, and rarely choose Nassang's fiefdom. Not only because Nassang has many strong men, and is difficult to open up, but also because several major forces in Nassang have agreed not to easily start a war. And now, Lady Tide has fallen first. It seems that Emperor Wu Mian has decided to launch a full-scale war against the Great Swamp. In that case, the eyes of the nobles looking at Lin Ke suddenly became much more eager, and even Viscount Mantis couldn't help but flicker. Count Grizzly narrowed his eyes, and the brilliance in them was inconsistent with his honest appearance. It can be seen what he was thinking. Thank you for your approval, Your Majesty Wu Mian. At this time, Princess Lin Ke finished reading, and Lin Ke got off the Gila bull, bowed his head, and beat his chest with his right hand to show respect. There is no need to kowtow 3 times and 9 times here, let alone long live the emperor. Just a salute, which is pretty good in this respect. After Lin Ke on the wall finished reading, she nodded slightly to Lin Ke, and then stood there, as if waiting for Lin Ke's arrangement. Lin Ke returned to the Gila bull, and looked at the nobles. Facing those eager eyes, he first gave himself a loudspeaker. Everyone, from now on, I'm the commander-in-chief of the Great Wall. Surprisingly, there was no voice of opposition this time. Lin Ke also guessed some of the nobles' thoughts, and smiled and said, I will try my best to retain the original soldiers, and not disband the team. Please obey my orders. When the nobles heard this, the trace of worry in their eyes disappeared. Lin Ke's face was full of smiles, and then he began to talk and understand the nobles one by one. Now, everything else is secondary. It is most important to defend the Great Wall, and wait for Emperor Wu Mian to bring troops to support in 2 months. Then, let's discuss it together. Lin Ke returned to his humble and open-minded attitude at this time and discussed with other nobles one by one. Cavalry, infantry, ranged soldiers, charge, reconnaissance, death squad, surprise troops, cannon fodder, all kinds of arms opened Lin Ke's eyes, and countless combat ideas were formed in Lin Ke's mind. In the end, Lin Ke discussed with the nobles, only a very small part of the complementary troops were disbanded and redistributed, and some unique arms were attained in the original organization. Of course, Lin Ke also knew that nobles like the Great Sword Count had to be with the soldiers and attack together to be powerful. However, while discussing, someone came to report. Lord Dakali, my pet found something unusual in the Great Swamp. This was a man wrapped in a black robe, sitting on a dark and thin cheetah. This was one of Count Akula's followers, an 8th level beast tamer. There was something unusual in the Great Swamp. The nobles looked at Lin Ke hurriedly, waiting for Lin Ke to make a decision. Unusual movement? Lin Ke frowned and looked at Akali. Uncle Akali, can you ask what the specific situation is? Since the death of Lady Tide, the Great Swamp has been shrouded in the aura of those monster kings, and humans will be discovered if they approach. Many of their scouts and thieves have been discovered, so Lin Ke has been trying to investigate the situation, but he has no way to do it. Akali looked at Lin Ke, then looked at his followers, and finally looked at Lin Ke and said, "Little Lin Ke, you are now the commander-in-chief. Just ask whatever you want to ask." Lin Ke nodded after hearing this, cast a thankful look at Akali, and then looked at Akali's followers. Akali's followers were also smart, and immediately replied at this time, "Master Lin Ke, I observed that there seemed to be a noise in the Great Swamp, so I released my pet one-eyed dog. It told me that the smell inside is getting more and more, and it seems to be rushing out of the forest of the Great Swamp. About half an hour. The monsters will rush out of the forest in half an hour." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expressions changed. It had been so peaceful for so long that some people even suspected that the Great Swamp would not dare to attack the Gila Kingdom, and that Lin Ke had ulterior motives. But now, the monster tide in the Great Swamp is really coming. Lin Ke did not hesitate at all. He immediately gave himself a loudspeaker and said seriously, "Everyone, gather in 10 minutes. Everyone was shocked and began to reorganize their subordinates. Lin Ke hurried to the Great Wall. "Teacher, I'll help too." At this time, Laplace also came with a math problem. However, he also knew that the situation was urgent, so he did not pester Lin Ke to look at the problem and solve it. Instead, he turned around and left after speaking. Lin Ke pulled Laplace back and said with wide eyes, "Don't run around. Stay by my side." Laplace is the only son of the Marquis of Ice. It would be fine if the Marquis of Ice had many descendants, but Laplace is the only heir to the Ice bloodline. The Marquis of Ice is a powerful 18-level professional, and Lin Ke doesn't want to offend him. Oh. Laplace suddenly smiled happily, his ice blue eyes full of joy, and followed Lin Ke, who was several years younger than him. Lin Ke ignored Laplace and walked quickly up the city wall. Princess Lin Ke also came to meet him. "Where is Butler Curry?" Lin Ke asked, as soon as they met. Lin Ke's face was full of joy, but when she heard about Lin Ke's culture, her eyes drooped. "Why are you asking him? Just tell me if you like the birthday present I gave you as an extra gift." Lin Ke looked at her speechlessly. "You have already given me 56 birthday presents. Do you think I'm old?" But when she said this, Lin Ke was suddenly shocked, and then horrified. "Wait. Birthday present? Question mark? You can't really. Oh my." Princess Lin Ke saw Lin Ke like this and grinned. You are the smartest. Oh my god." Lin Ke widened her eyes. "The earldom was not given by Emperor Wumian, but you said it yourself. Then it was also false that he would come to support within 2 months. It was also false that he wanted to go to war with the Great Swamp. And the matter of the fiefdom? Sister, are you faking the Imperial Edict? Lin Ke now wants to jump from here and die." Lin Ke shook her head ignorantly. "No. It's all true, but the earldom and the fiefdom were given to you by me. My father loves me very much, and so does my mother. They will definitely not mind. The problem is, that's the lava swamp. Is it such a big area? And Lin Kexin brought it up again. "Wait, Princess Rika, we are really not suitable. If it was in his previous life, he would definitely feel very happy to have a princess as his girlfriend. But in nothing, please, is the father-in-law and mother-in-law something that Lin Ke, with his thin arms and legs, can afford to offend? Don't let Rika be upset by accident, or he, Lin Ke, will be slapped to death by the sleepless emperor. I don't care. Princess Rika turned her head and didn't listen to Lin Ke at all. Lin Ke rubbed his forehead and said helplessly, Rika, what about butler curry? Oh, him? I've asked him to find my father. He's faster than the cuckoo bird. Rika said, taking out 2 pieces of sour fruit milk cake from the space ring and eating them, and asked casually, by the way, when will the next game of Wonderful Land be? Has Zyro Lacey tamed the strange fire? Lin Ke, sister, this is war. Zyro Lacey is the protagonist of Lin Ke's script Snake Ring. The current chapter is about him taming the Azure Lotus Earth Core fire. The question is what time it is now. Is it the time for you to read and urge for updates? I want to hit someone. Is there any need to ask whether there is any tamed strange fire? This is obvious. In order to avoid myocardial infarction, Lin Ke quickly got rid of liquor and came to the wall again. By the way, he sent Laplace away to find Nyx and his followers. Time is running out. At this time, everyone has gathered. Chapter 114 Temporary Mission. Mysterious Existence. Inside the Great Wall, Lin Ke gave an order, and everyone started to move. One by one, the earls, viscounts, and barons began to reorganize their teams, and then lined up in front of Lin Ke. Most of the warriors were ordinary people, but some, like the Great Sword Earl and the Black Claw Earl, were led by professionals. The armored man who apologized to Lin Ke before was one of the commanders under the Great Sword Earl. As for Azan, there were only a few professionals, most of whom were below level 5. Only a few, such as Ramir and Lalita, were newly surrendered. The army of 20,000 people gathered, and the dust was flying. The weather was getting cooler, but the training ground was steaming hot. Great Sword Earl, you are the vanguard. Black Claw Earl is the left wing, and Akali Earl is the center. Grizzly Earl, you are the right wing. Viscount Mantis, your team must protect the archers behind. Earl Kingquin. Lin Ke stood on the Great Wall, and commands came out of his mouth like a string of cannons. The memories and learning, deduction and exploration of the past 2 months have made his military literacy advance by leaps and bounds. Now, it's time to turn the paper talk into a battle experience. The nobles seemed to be doing their best at this time, and they commanded their soldiers one by one according to Lin Ke's orders. After a while, Lin Ke finally arranged everything, but the training ground was still in chaos. Suddenly, the task came again. Temporary task, lead your people, appear in front of the whole army, and break through the tentative attack of the lava swamp. Reward, the gaze of the mysterious existence. Note, the charging team can only be Azan people or followers. Temporary task? So there are temporary tasks? Lin Ke frowned slightly, which means that temporary tasks can occur during the task period. But, the meaning of this task is to let him leave other nobles in charge with his own people. According to the idea of this system, the first wave of attack in the Great Swamp is tentative, and perhaps there are no powerful monsters in it. In this case, either let someone like the Sleepless Emperor attack the jungle like a whirlwind, and make a quick decision. Or we should try to keep the troops here as much as possible, and prevent the Great Swamp from finding out the truth. Should we carry out this temporary mission? After weighing the pros and cons, Lin Ke decided to accept it. If the army directly pressed forward, perhaps the first wave of attack would be easily resolved, and their people would also suffer minimal losses. But in that case, the intelligent monsters in the Great Swamp would definitely be able to find out the truth. If they knew that there were only a few tens of thousands of people here, it is estimated that the boundless tide of monsters would have directly overwhelmed them. As for the reward, the gaze of the mysterious existence. Since it is a reward, maybe the big boss has taken a fancy to him and wants to take him as a disciple. There is nothing to say. Then, lead the army to attack. Lin Ke stood there thinking, and then a group of people came. The leader was Butler Billy, followed by John, Nyx and Laplace. There was also a flash of lightning in the sky. After that, it was Lin Ke's followers. The strongest was the 10th level, Bard, Rami, followed by the 8th level, Charming Beauty Lalita. However, Lalita was leading a strong Gillable. When Lalita said she wanted to be a knight, Lin Ke gave her a gila bull and told her the job ratio. Then Lalita spent 2 months to be promoted to the 2nd level knight. It seems that Lalita is very suitable for being a knight and works very hard. Master, everything has been arranged in the castle. In addition, Butler Billy came to Lin Ke very quickly and handed a space ring to Lin Ke. This is what Granny Zise asked me to give you. Lin Ke accepted it, glanced at it briefly, and put it on his hand. Explosive pack. Master, so far no one has successfully become a doctor. The maids can only do some simple bandaging and cleaning work. Nix also came forward to report the situation to Lin Ke. Well, that's enough. Let them prepare behind the city wall. Lin Ke nodded, and then looked at Rami. Master Lin Ke, we are all ready, and we are also part-time knights. Rami smiled and bowed. Behind him was Lin Ke's maid Sophie, who was full of joy and determination. Master, I have successfully become a singer. You are right. Singer? At this time, Lin Ke was not very excited. A 1st level professional was not very helpful in this kind of battlefield. He just said, very good, then you can sing inside the city wall to encourage. Master. Sophie interrupted Lin Ke for the first time. Her face flushed. I want to charge with you. I'm also a 1st level knight. Lin Ke raised his eyebrows. You. Master Lin Ke. Why are you so nagging? Don't look down on us women. Lalita hugged Sophie with a heroic attitude and shouted, who said women are inferior to men? Yes, yes. Princess Lin Ke, who was eating cakes and watching the show nearby, heard Lalita's words. Her eyes lit up, and she agreed with Lalita. Lin Ke didn't say anything more. You think about it yourself. If you want to join the team, go and lead the Gila cattle. At this point, Lin Ke had a headache. Azan's Gila ranch is not very big. Now almost all the Gila bulls are going to the battlefield, and I don't know if there will be enough breeding bulls next year. But since these people are going to join Lin Ke's charge, Lin Ke has to consider more. That is, to win a battle. And it is a victory that belongs to him. Lin Ke walked to the wall, supported his hands on the edge of the wall, and looked at the jungle in the distance, which was boundless. John, pass the order. The guard should be ready, right? Lin Ke took a deep breath and ordered in a deep voice, follow me out of the Great Wall. We will go to meet those beasts. As soon as Lin Ke's voice came out, John hadn't replied yet. Lalita shouted, good. Let's go and kill them. Damn it. Kill them. Nick's ears drooped behind his head, with excitement and fear in his eyes. Butler Billy smiled and said nothing, but from his calmness, it can be seen that he must have been through many battles following Garros. Rami was calm and relaxed, with his hands behind his back, looking very cool. Laplace was preoccupied with math problems. Princess Rika was eager to make a move. It seemed that, if she hadn't known her own situation, she would have followed Lin Ke as the vanguard. Master, I'll go and gather the knights. John was also a little nervous, but he still followed Lin Ke's orders in a serious manner. John was already a 1st level knight at this time. Go. Lin Ke turned around, and everyone followed him down the wall. In front, the nobles were on full alert, as if they regarded Lin Ke as the commander-in-chief of this place. Chapter 115 People's Knights. John and his men had already dispersed. John went to reorganize the team, while the other followers returned to the team. Lin Ke faced the nobles and said seriously, I know you may not be convinced that I'm the commander. As soon as these words came out, the nobles, who had originally had different expressions, were all startled. Curly was about to speak, but was stopped by Lin Ke's eyes. Lin Ke continued, so, in this first battle, I will lead the Knights of Azanan to attack. He used the sound amplification technique to transmit his voice far away. So, everyone was shocked. No, Lin Ke, there may be monsters in the first battle. Monsters are not wild beasts. Monsters are to wild beasts what professionals are to ordinary people. We can only use the Great Wall to resist those powerful monsters. Yes, the Great Wall condenses a defense, and we can use it to resist. Curly and his men spoke out to stop him, with a solemn look. You know, nobles usually stay behind the entire army, not just because they cherish their bodies and are afraid of the battlefield. As the leader and maintainer of the army, if the nobles take risks and make mistakes, the entire combat system may collapse. Moreover, it is actually more difficult to see the overall situation in the battle. Except for some special wars or the existence of the sleepless emperor who can break all laws with one force. Otherwise, the nobles generally do not go to the battlefield. Before, Lin Ke said that he would lead the charge, and the great sword earl and his men only thought about a certain battle in this war. Lin Ke was willing to lead the troops to fight and rush to the front. Having such courage is already great. Unexpectedly, now Lin Ke said that he would go out to fight the Great Swamp for the first time. If Lin Ke is strong, it's fine, but Lin Ke is only a few levels. Lin Ke, you have to know that you are the commander now. The Great Sword Earl frowned and looked at Lin Ke. He believed that Lin Ke's intelligence was clear about this. I know. Lin Ke waved his hand and said, it doesn't matter. According to my observation and judgment, the first wave of attacks is just a tentative attack. Tentative attack. The nobles were puzzled. How did they judge it? But they were used to Lin Ke's cleverness, so they didn't say much. In addition, Lin Ke himself was not afraid, so they were even more afraid, because it was not them who went to fight. It was just that people like the Great Sword Count were still trying to dissuade him. In their opinion, as a commander and a noble, it would be too risky for Lin Ke to go in the first wave. Little did they know that Lin Ke didn't want to do that. He had thought that he could boost morale by rushing to the front. Then the big guys like the Great Sword Count, the Black Claw Count and Teacher Aofu would be there to protect him. Although there would be a little danger, it was generally safe. Who would have thought that the system would do this? And that mysterious existence's gaze was quite tempting to Lin Ke. Now Aofu was at level 20 star glory, which was very powerful. But compared with gods and legends, there was still some gap. Even the Tide Lady of more than 20 levels had fallen, and Lin Ke felt that it would be better to have one more mysterious existence to watch him and protect him. It would be better to be his second teacher, so that it would be safer. Moreover, Lin Ke still remembered the curse of the king of the gods before. Seeing Lin Ke's determination, Count Blackclaw couldn't help but ask, Commander Lin Ke, didn't your father lead your knights of the torrent into a ditch? Where do you have a knight sword now? Knight's order? Lin Ke looked to the right, and at this time, a group of people led by John and Billy were riding on the Gillibull. They were men, women, young and old, tall and short, fat and thin, and wearing different armors. They looked like an acrobatic troupe. These were followers. The Knight's Order after the followers looked a bit more like a group. At least their equipment was unified. In the past, Azan had money and Lin Ke couldn't buy it. After all, Lin Ke had liquors back during this period, so it was normal for him to buy something for his men. It's just that the things bought for the followers are naturally more expensive than those for the 200 knights. Yes, 200 knights. These 200 are the results of Orf during this period. It is said that, because Orf enlightened too many people, he was promoted to the 12th level, Enlightenment Teacher. It's just that Lin Ke overestimated the talents of others. Except for 5 people with medium talents, all the others in his knight group were of low-level talents. During this period of time, only 3 people were promoted to the 1st level knight. This made Lin Ke a little regretful, but also a little fortunate. Fortunately that he had good talents, and was promoted quickly. Behind the knight group were other infantry, and ranged soldiers of Azan. My knight group is here. Lin Ke pointed to this group of knights that were not even professionals. The expressions of the nobles were different. People like Count Blackclaw and Count Grizzly Bear just didn't think much of it. After all, the elites inherited from their respective families were much better than this messy knight group. But the first generation nobles like Count Giant Sword couldn't help but be surprised. 200 people, actually enlightened 200 people. This requires great courage. According to many nobles' news, Lin Ke only enlightened 5 or 6 people. Enlightenment is not random enlightenment. Those who are enlightened mean that they have the possibility of squeezing into the nobles. As long as they are professionals, they can become the lowest nobles pioneer knights. If a commoner becomes a professional, there are 2 ways to become a noble. One is to conquer a piece of land by himself. The other is to get a piece of land from the master. This is also the reason why nobles rarely give commoners the opportunity to be enlightened. No one wants the commoners under their command to have the possibility of dividing their territory, but Lin Ke enlightened 200 people at one time. In addition to his followers, these 200 people may leave his command in the future, or divide the territory from him. The most important thing is that the Earl of Giant Sword knows that Lin Ke must understand this, so they think Lin Ke is courageous. Either Lin Ke has a solution, or Lin Ke feels that he can fully control the knights, or both. At this time, Lin Ke is facing his knights, and his mood is slightly excited. These people used to be guards, and their ancestors have been Azanan people for generations, and they are extremely loyal to Azanan. And now, they are Lin Ke's knights. Master, we are here. With the support of Butler Billy, John came to Lin Ke as the leader of the knights. Lin Ke smiled and nodded. John was still just a child, and Nix was just over 100 days old. But now, they all followed Lin Ke to the battlefield with great strength. Hey, boss, what's the name of our knights? Tsunade, no. Lalita whistled and asked Lin Ke. Lin Ke glanced at Lalita's foul eyes, and then looked at his followers and those knights, one by one. Suddenly, he thought of his previous life, the pioneers, and the greatest and most powerful force in his previous life, the people. Lin Ke couldn't help but use the amplification technique to let his voice spread far and wide. People's knights. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 Undercurrent. The Great Wall runs across the southern part of Azan's territory for 15 kilometers from east to west, and it is still getting longer. The entire Great Wall is 30 meters high at its highest point. A large number of magic patterns, secret locks, and magic languages representing defense and solidity of various races are drawn on the entire wall. On the wall, there are aisles enough for 10 soldiers to walk side by side. There are also passages for mounts to walk under the wall, including crossbows and crossbow arrows extending from the edge of the wall. Ferocious, heavy, and long. This is a fortress. In terms of height and defense, this fortress is not as good as many castles of great nobles, or even some large cities. But in terms of length and the significance of the establishment of the Great Wall, this fortress can indeed be called somewhat great. In the middle of the fortress, there is an ordinary wall. Under the chanting of the 2 secret scribes, the bricks on the wall were hidden into the void one by one, and then a whole space was vacated, just like a gate. Then, the 2 secret scribes stepped aside, and a line of people and horses filed out from the empty space on the city wall. The leader was a young man with a resolute face and brown hair. It was Lin Ke. Behind Lin Ke was his people's knights. Men and women, young and old, tall and short, fat and thin. If they were alone, they would look fine, but compared with a team of Counter Curly behind them, they looked like a group of refugees. Behind Lin Ke's people's knights was a Curly's infantry regiment. Those infantrymen were wearing gorgeous equipment, and the magic light was shining on them. And after that, it was the knights of Count Giant Sword and others. The troops near the entire Great Wall suddenly poured out of the wall. On the city wall, there were also pairs of guards led by professional guards, who quickly filled the Great Wall. Archers, throwers, etc. also took their positions one by one, standing at the edge of the Great Wall and aiming outside. Other professionals who were good at guarding and long-range attacks had also stood in place. Inside the wall, catapults with Azan flags were slowly erected by the slaves, and then huge stones were placed on the iron pots of the catapults. Maids in simple clothes were waiting at the foot of the wall, ready to receive the wounded outside the wall at any time. These were people trained by Nix, and were part of the medical system. In this intensive process, Lin Ke had already led the team to the front, and the army behind him slowly stood at the foot of the wall. Lin Ke was wearing a set of armor specially made for him by the profession blacksmith. He wore a helmet with a visor on his head, and a thin air pressure shield covered him, and a gillable under him. Looking straight ahead at the jungle, deep in the swamp, next to a deep pool. At this time, several powerful monsters were surrounding the pool, speaking human language. We must go straight over. The glory of our god cannot be trampled on. A huge wild boar, nearly 2 stories high, had red eyes and its bristles stood up, and it was roaring. But our god is dead. What we have to worry about now is Woomian. You idiot. Just opposite the wild boar, a huge green snake with a very long body spitted out snake tongue, and its vertical eyes were extremely cold. That's your god, not my gua. Next to the green giant snake, a giant purple frog reminded in a cold tone. There were wet pustules behind the frog, which were shaky, and seemed to contain great energy. The wild boar immediately glared at it. You are blaspheming. Enough. At this moment, a sharp cry came, and a giant red bird flew down from the tree next to it. Its body was gorgeous and slender, and its tail had long tail feathers, which was extremely beautiful. The body of this giant bat was even bigger than that wild boar. After the phoenix appeared, all the monsters cast their eyes over. Phoenix, you asked us to kill Cheogsi, what should we do now? At this time, a lion who had been sitting upright without speaking asked, the power of the Gila kingdom, Nasang has no power that can resist it. The neutral voice of the phoenix was clear and sharp, which made the monsters quiet down. Then it continued, if the entire great swamp can fight against us, there is still a glimmer of hope, but then let's surrender directly. Quack. The purple giant frog spoke coldly. Cowardly purple frog. The wild boar stared at the purple giant frog with red eyes. We want to kill Woomian. Kill Woomian. As soon as these words came out, the beasts were silent. What's wrong? You idiots. The wild boar roared. We have endless monsters. We are extremely powerful. You are the idiot. The phoenix flapped its wings, and a gust of hot wind blew out, accompanied by a strong pressure. The wild boar stopped talking immediately. Lion King, go control a group of wild beasts and test the strength of the fortress outside. The phoenix looked at the lion with narrow eyes. The lion, known as the Lion King, was red all over, and the fluffy mane on his neck moved without wind, looking mighty and domineering. However, the size of this Lion King was not that big compared to the giant beast next to it, and it was only the size of an ordinary lion. Okay. The Lion King nodded slightly, stood up and stepped on his furry feet as big as a palm leaf fan, and disappeared into the woods with a few leaps. Then the phoenix looked at the giant snake. Snake, go and discuss with Prince Xingqian, and stop the war for a year. Being stared at by the phoenix, the giant snake twisted its body uneasily, and then said in embarrassment, Prince Xingqian is one level higher than me. The phoenix's thick claws moved, and its eyes suddenly became sharp. The giant snake immediately let out a hissing sound, and its body suddenly shrank back into a snake formation, and said in panic, I'll go now. After that, it fled away from the pool. Let another little snake go to the battlefield to see. And its men. The phoenix's voice spread, regardless of whether the giant snake heard it or not. There were only two monsters left by the pool, the purple giant frog and the wild boar. Phoenix. The wild boar looked at the phoenix with red eyes, and was about to say something. Unexpectedly, the phoenix flapped its wings across the air. Idiot. The phoenix's voice was full of anger. You almost ruined my plan. The wild boar flew out, spitting out a pool of smelly blood. The purple giant frog sat upright, and before the phoenix got angry, one of the pustules on its back exploded. The gas in the pustules spread out all of a sudden, lingering around 100 meters around, and the sound and breath around the pool could not be transmitted at all. Okay, if you do something bad again this time, I will kill you directly. The phoenix's voice was cold. After teaching the wild boar a lesson, it looked at the purple giant frog. What do the other Warcraft kings and tribes say? The purple giant frog opened its mouth and answered. The bloodthirsty Ironhoof tribe has joined. The ant god remains neutral. The purple gold millipede has joined. The crow bear has joined. After saying a lot of things one after another, the phoenix just stopped by the pool. The wild boar spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood and stood up. The red light in its eyes dissipated, and its 2 round, black eyes showed no shame or indignation. The swamp crocodile clan refuses, the thunder eagle clan refuses, that's all. The purple frog said, and looked at the phoenix quietly. The phoenix stood there thinking, and then looked to the north. Let's go and see what's going on in the Gila kingdom. Chapter 117. So this is the charge of the night. Damn. Lin Ke drove the Gila Niu under his crotch forward, followed by his people's knights. Gila Niu was wearing a special leather armor that could provide a certain degree of defense and was not restricted in his movements. He wore a helmet with magical fluctuations, and the armor on his body was both light and strong, as was the sword in his hand. Behind him were his followers, and behind the followers were the people's knights. And behind the people's knights were other Azan guards. These guards were just guards at first, but later Lin Ke divided them into 3 teams of archers, swordmen, and spearmen. These 3 teams were not large, with only more than 200 people each, which could be considered infantry and ranged soldiers. These were the only remaining troops in Azan. Most of the other nobles in Azan did not have any decent soldiers, and it was too difficult to retrain them. So Lin Ke used all those soldiers to do private work, and only selected some of them to join the team composed of the Azan castle guards. And behind Azan were rows of guards from other nobles standing in the corners, ready to support Lin Ke at any time. There are still a few minutes. Lin Ke estimated that the time reported by Curley's men half an hour ago was approaching. Lin Ke held a light iron sword with 2 levels of magic fluctuations on it. The armor on his body was just an ordinary iron armor, which was not breathable. Fortunately, the weather was not hot in autumn. In the distance facing them, the Great Swamp could be vaguely seen. The section from the north of the Great Swamp to the Great Wall was actually very desolate, with almost no grass growing on the land. But at the beginning of the Great Swamp, it became green again, with jungles and shrubs everywhere, and some hills in the distance were also full of green. But at this time, it was obvious that there was movement in the jungle. The treetops were shaking, and even the ground was shaking a little. Obviously, a large number of things were moving. The beast tide is coming. Get ready. Lin Ke held the hilt tightly, a little nervous, and his palms were sweating a little. But fortunately, he listened to the experience of the veterans, and tied his palm and the hilt with a cloth strip, to prevent the sword from slipping out of his hand. At this time, Ramil seemed to notice the tension of the crowd. He sat astride the Gila bull, and the energy in his body suddenly boiled up. He let out a long roar that pierced golden split stones, and then opened his mouth, and recited in a rhythmic manner, Aznan, beautiful Aznan. The noble princess sang love songs here, the young lion king rose here. The eternal summer still stands the great wall, even the sun can't make everything depressed. Ramil's voice was ups and downs, and waves of professional power were transmitted in his voice. His voice was sometimes high and sometimes low, sometimes gentle and sometimes heroic. In just 2 minutes, he finished chanting a short poem. Bard Ramil's skill, victory hymn. The name of the poem, The Rising Aznan. This is the latest poem Ramil created, after becoming Lin Ke's follower, and he used it to replace the original victory hymn. It's so hot. At this time, just after Rami finished chanting his poem, Lin Ke felt that large amounts of scholar's power and knight's power were surging out of his body, continuously. At the same time, he could clearly feel that his muscles were expanding, and his body was lighter and more coordinated. Rami's skill increased his professional power recovery speed, physical strength and agility. Lin Ke felt that he was only a 3rd level scholar now, but he could have the power of a 4th level scholar. Good guy. Ramir is worthy of being a 10th level bard. This buff is quite cool. Lin Ke felt that his palms were no longer sweaty, and his palm holding the hilt was more powerful. You know, although he is now a 3rd level scholar and a 3rd level knight, he is only 6 years old in terms of physical foundation. Enough. Rami, I love you to death. Lalita cheered, extremely excited. The girl carried 2 rivet hammers. Her little face flushed, and the power in her body continued to burst out. Rami smiled slightly, with the unique charm of a middle-aged man, which made Nyx beside him stunned. Ramir is so handsome. I want to learn. Nyx thought to himself. Master, just charge, and leave the rest to me. At this time, Butler Billy was riding on the Gila cattle skillfully, and his voice reached Lin Ke's ears directly. Butler Billy used to follow Garrows, and even gave his only blood to Butler Billy to protect. It can be seen that Butler Billy has some real skills. Lin Ke's originally nervous heart calmed down under the interaction of Rami, Lalita and Butler Billy. He looked at the jungle in the distance, and wild beasts had already rushed out. Wild beasts, all of them are wild beasts. There is no magic fluctuation, all are wild beasts. But Lin Ke did not relax at all. Because there are too many wild beasts. Lions, tigers, leopards, buffaloes, wild boars, birds. Countless animals poured out of the jungle like a tide, covering the sky and the earth. A rough count showed that there were nearly tens of thousands of them. These beasts ran in a regular pattern, and their expressions were not panic, but they were purposefully charging towards Lin Ke and his team. Seeing this, Lin Ke took a deep breath, and when the time was right, he raised his sword high and shouted, "People's knights, follow me and charge." Rami followed closely and let out a long howl, as if responding to Lin Ke's words, and everyone was also excited by this long howl. Lin Ke drove the Gila Bull forward, and a thin streamlined shield formed on him, and the Gila Bull skill streamlined air pressure shield. At the same time, Lin Ke's other bloodline, the leader bloodline, began to glow slightly, and the energy on it was continuously input into Lin Ke's body. Knight skill, charge. During this period, Lin Ke did not improve much in Scholar, but he raised Knight to level 3, the same level as Scholar, and he engraved the charge skill in the first skill position. During this period, he never relaxed his training. Scholars are best served by meditation, while the best feedback for the promotion of Knights comes from training in fighting. Every day is training, meditation, handling castle affairs, and handling engineering matters of the Great Wall. Therefore, Lin Ke was promoted in just a few months, a height that others can only reach in 1 or 2 years. For example, Laplace is only a 3rd level mathematician now. Awoo. Charge. 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 As Lin Ke's order and Rami's long roar ended, Lalita's strange cry sounded. Lalita's original main occupation was Charming Beauty, which was as high as level 8, even higher than Butler Billy. It's just that I heard that the way Charming Beauty gets feedback is a bit special, a bit 18+. And after Lalita took on the part-time job of Knight, she simply gave up the profession of Charming Beauty by doing her best to support Knight, the vast end of the world. At this time, Sophie was also ready to learn from Rama and use her singing to encourage everyone. She took on the job of singer. Bards prefer to recite poetry, while singers sing. However, she was too nervous, and the energy surging in her blood could not match her voice, so she was interrupted after singing only 2 sentences. "Little Sophie, just come a few more times." Rami was next to Sophie and comforted her. Just when Sophie wanted to say something, Lin Ke shouted, "Get ready." As soon as this was said, everyone's heart trembled, and they all tightened their weapons. At the same time, Butler Billy, who was one body behind Lin Ke, suddenly stood up from the back of the cow, his body straight, without shaking at all. Butler Billy wanted to open his arms, and invisible energy shot out from his 10 fingers, and connected to everyone in the People's Knights. Butler skill, synergy. In an instant, the knights, who originally looked like a group of rabble, became a sword stabbing forward. They were scattered before, but now they have become a cohesive whole. The reason why the knights are called the king of the battlefield in Nasang so far is because the knights can be condensed into a whole when they attack. In that case, the role on the battlefield is equivalent to a heavy armor like a tank, and it moves super fast. At this time, they are very close to the beast. After Lin Ke and the power of the knights behind him gathered together, he immediately shouted again, "Charge." The first skill of all knight professions, charge. Boom. The professional knights in the People's Knights immediately burst out all their energy in an instant, forming a wave of air. Butler Billy adjusted it in the middle, forming an unmatched force. With Lin Ke as the tip of the knife, the entire People's Knights rushed into the tide of beasts at once. The entire tide of beasts is like Gila cow cheese, and the People's Knights are the tip of the artifact knife with the flame of the phoenix attached. The flesh and blood were cut apart in an instant, and the hot blood covered the earth. At a glance, the entire tide of beasts was cut into 2 pieces by Lin Ke's People's Knights. And Lin Ke. At this time, the energy in Lin Ke's body and the energy of the Gila cow under him merged together. The knight and the mount are one. Blood and flesh flew everywhere in front of him. Lin Ke could only use the air pressure shield to protect his head and other vital parts as much as possible, while his arms were swinging the iron sword. There were also 2 thin air pressure blades on the flanks, cutting the beasts. The armor was full of the beast's eyeballs, intestines, internal organs, and yellow and white things. The most was blood and flesh. Bloody, blurry, and howling. Lin Ke forgot everything at some point, and only remembered the idea of charging forward. In the soul space, the leader blood was slightly glowing, and the profession, knight, on it was continuously providing Lin with huge energy to support his charge. And Lin Ke felt that he was one step closer to the 4th level knight. The charge of knight is not trained in the training ground. The real charge is when blood and flesh fly everywhere. Chapter 118 Medical Knight Nyx. Hahaha, my hammer will sweep across the 4 directions. On the battlefield, Lalita was extremely excited. She followed Nyx, clamped her legs around the gillable, and swung the 2 hammers vigorously. Little rabbit, look at how powerful I am. Lalita winked at Nyx. Nyx's ears drooped nervously. He didn't hold anything in his hands. His 2 small eyes looked at his teammates around nervously, ignoring Lalita. I don't know if it was because of her fur or because she looked cute, but Lalita always liked to harass Nyx. Nyx was small, and riding the gillable at this time was like a lump on the gillable. It was actually difficult for him to control such a big mount. Suddenly, he saw an unlucky knight who was scratched in the stomach and was shaking. Nyx's eyes condensed, and he kicked his legs on the bull's back and rushed out directly. The gillable continued to run with the herd without feeling anything. Nyx is a level 1 knight, and also a level 2 doctor and poison master. Although his promotion speed is not as fast as Lin Ke's, Nyx's talent can be said to be one of the top ones in the Endless Plane. As a level 2 player, he has created a skill with the help of Lin Ke. Nyx turned into a white shadow and jumped back and forth among the running gilla cattle. After a few leaps, he came to the side of the injured knight. The team was moving forward, and the knights were shaking, but this did not affect Nyx's speed and flexibility at all. His hairy right palm gently stuffed back the intestines that had already flowed out of the wounded, and then pressed the skin that was cut by the claws. But Nyx's palm flashed a dark green light, and then the knight's wound healed naturally, and a layer of dark green paste appeared on it. Doctor skill, herbal treatment. This is a skill that Lin Ke discussed with him, which comes from his familiarity with herbs for treating external injuries. After treating this knight, Nyx moved again and came to the next injured knight to use his skills. At this time, Lin Ke's team had already driven through the beast tide and was turning to make a second charge. Butler Billy stood firmly on the bumpy back of the gillable and continued to use the cooperation skill to make the people's knights become a whole. Puff. When a beast threatened Butler Billy, John and Sophie next to him would use their swords to protect Butler Billy. And Laplace, with his equation floating above his head, was calculating the distance all the time and guiding Lin Ke's direction. As for Lin Ke, Lin Ke's body was covered with blood and dirt. There were scratches on his armor, and his hair was stained with blood, but his eyes were terribly bright. This is a battlefield. This is flesh and blood. This is riding a bull and slashing. Damn, it's not as fun to chop with a sword as with a knife. I have to change to a machete. Lin Ke moved his wrist and continued to chop the beasts on his left and right. Although the gilla bull under his seat was considered an ordinary beast rather than a magic beast, it became extremely brave under Lin Ke's charge skill. Coupled with Billa's skill synergy, the gilla bull seemed to have the strength of a first or second level warcraft. The horns of the gilla bull stretched straight forward. The beasts along the way were either killed by the horns of the gilla bull or ran to the sides. Lin Ke was like the head of an arrow, piercing into the beast tide sharply, and his skill, the air pressure shield, was output intermittently. Thanks to Lin Ke's previous research, his control over the air pressure shield has become stronger and stronger. Just like the superposition of power, John's power superposition may only superimpose 40% to 50% of the power, but AOF can superimpose 40% to 50% of the power. At the beginning, when Lin Ke first created this skill, he could only make a streamlined shield. And now, there are 2 thin air pressure blades on both sides of the gilla bull, like 2 knives, cutting through the bodies of beasts one by one as the gilla bull rushes. Just like the wind blade. But it consumes less energy than the magic wind blade and has longer lasting and greater power. However, it was already difficult for Lin Ke to maintain the 2 wings. Some non-fatal injuries did not need shields to resist, so he was now covered in dirt. Flanks, attack. At this moment, Lin Ke gave an order, and the voice was transmitted from the helmet far away through the sound amplification technique. So the infantry in the rear, a large group of sword and shield soldiers, and a large group of spearmen rushed over. These infantrymen were originally just guards of Azane Castle, and were actually some farmers. After Lin Ke's physical training, discipline training, and housekeeping training, the sword and shield soldiers and spearmen now had resolute expressions and charged with great momentum. All the spearmen holding shields stopped 1 or 200 meters away from the beast tide and hit the shields hard and inserted them into the ground. The sword and shield soldiers hid behind the spearmen, all concentrating on facing them. In a few seconds, the beasts came. Bang, bang. Buffaloes, lions and tigers hit the shields one by one, and the spearmen gritted their teeth to resist, but their bodies were also pushed back several steps. There were also 1 or 2 unlucky guys who were knocked away by those majestic buffaloes, or whose shields were directly broken by the collision, but fortunately, there were sword and shield soldiers who came forward to deal with them. Break. At this time, the captain of the spear team immediately gave an order, and iron spears instantly pierced out from the holes in the shields. In an instant, all the beasts rushing in front were pierced through their bodies, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. Break, break, break. The captain of the spear team uttered 3 words in a row, as if it was a slogan. The glory of Azan. When the spearmen heard the slogan, they immediately roared at the same time. Roaring and yelling has no killing power, but it is not useless. It can boost courage and morale. Puff, puff, puff. The spearmen used their spears to quickly thrust back and forth in the special gaps after the shields were put together, harvesting the lives of those beasts. However, there were too many beasts. They were only 200 people. In just a moment, several buffaloes broke through their defense line. All sword and shield soldiers, go. The captain of the sword and shield team saw the critical situation and shouted immediately, then took the lead to step forward on the shoulder of the spearman and jumped out from the shield. Glory to Azan! Glory to Azan! Glory to Azan! The roars of these sword and shield soldiers were not so uniform, but their expressions were fierce and fierce. During training, the spearmen were mainly trained to resist blows, while the sword and shield soldiers were trained to fight against each other, so they were more murderous. At this time, the beasts were overwhelmed by the people's knights, and then intercepted by the spearmen, and they had no momentum. The sword and shield soldiers were like wolves entering a flock of sheep, chopping the beasts with their swords, and fighting with them. The beasts had no rules and no discipline. Many beasts had lost their composure, and ran around, after being overwhelmed by Lin Ke's people's knights. I don't know how many small beasts like foxes and badgers were trampled to death. However, carnivores like tigers and lions, or large animals like buffaloes still maintain a certain fighting capacity. At this time, Lin Ke's people's knights began the second round of charge. When the charge was about to reach the sword and shield soldiers, a white fluffy figure flashed among them. Some sword and shield soldiers and spearmen who were injured suddenly felt a coolness on their wounds. They immediately knew who was coming. People's Knights, Medical Knight, Nix. Chapter 119, The Wealthy Princess. Little Lin Ke's training method is really good. Is this the training method inherited by Azan? The Great Sword Earl smiled and pointed at Lin Ke in the distance. On the Great Wall, a group of nobles were discussing and watching Lin Ke's knights charging in the distance. At first, the Great Sword Earl and his men were very nervous, fearing that the first attack of the Great Swamp would be an endless tide of monsters. But now it seems okay. The first round is just a wave of beasts. So they are all watching the show and pointing out the situation. Azan? Haha, what kind of training method can a country boy have? The Grizzly Earl sneered, with a look of indifference on his face. Old Grizzly, I saw that you seemed to be chasing and chewing the milk of that mother bear when you were 6 years old. You are not ashamed to say that. Next to the Grizzly Earl was the Great Sword Earl, and next to him was the Black Claw Earl, who was not polite to the grizzly bear. You, a short-legged wolf, don't know shit. That's a sign of my good relationship with the grizzly mother. She is my half-mother. The Grizzly Earl widened his eyes. HMPH, Grizz, if you want to offend Lin Ke, don't forget who's behind him. At this time, the Great Sword Count also spoke up to help the Black Claw Count, looked at the Grizz, and then looked at Princess Lin Ke intentionally or unintentionally. Who is behind Lin Ke? The Grizz Count was disdainful in his heart. How could the royal family intervene in such a dispute? At most, Lin Ke would be married into the family and protected as a plaything. But the powerful AOF does need to be paid attention to. No matter who is behind you, you must be strong. Otherwise you will be like this short-legged wolf. You can't kill me, even if you want to. Hey, haha. The Grizz Count looked at the Black Claw Count provocatively. You. The Black Claw Count was about to fight back, but he heard Princess Lin Ke frowning and shouting, "Okay, shut up." As soon as Princess Lin Ke's voice came out, not only the Grizz and the Black Claw Count, but also other nobles of all sizes stopped. Princess Lin Ke was holding a photo stone with a faint light flickering on it, aiming at Lin Ke, with stars in her eyes. Apparently, they were filming, and didn't like the nobles' noise. These nobles, big or small, all had great respect for Princess Lin Ke. After all, she was the most beloved daughter of Emperor Wumian, and her own bloodline was talented, so her future achievements were limitless. Your Highness Lin Ke, it seems that this attack was just a tentative attack by the Great Swamp. The Count of the Great Sword came to Lin Ke and whispered, "Oh, really? But I think Lin Ke is so brave. Look at this people's knights. They are almost catching up with my father's black and white knights." Princess Lin Ke looked at Lin Ke fighting bloody battles below with a happy voice, and her voice was a little high. "Too brave. Well, no, I have to give Lin Ke a new set of armor. Pink ones will look better." Princess Lin Ke looked at Lin Ke in the distance with her eyes full of care, her green eyes full of longing. The nobles didn't think as much as Lin Ke, but remained silent. What Her Royal Highness said, "Well, the black and white knights." Count Giant Sword was silent for a second, then nodded slightly. "Yes, the two knights, at least, well, at least their races are similar." The other nobles were silent. "The black and white knights?" "The black and white knights of the Wumian Emperor of the Gira Kingdom, the lowest level is 10, and most of them are above 15. The entire knight group of 1000 people, when they charge, is called a devastating world. The last person who enjoyed this charge should be a powerful god or a powerful legend many years ago, maybe dating back to the founding of the country." Count Giant Sword looked at the old, weak, sick and disabled people who were charging in the distance. "They are really brave." Count Giant Sword praised, "Lin Ke is really amazing." Lin Ke also nodded, of course, you have good eyes." Alas, the thick skin of the giant sword has grown recently. Count Blackclaw next to him couldn't help but sigh in a low voice and poked Count Ackley with his elbow. Count Ackley heard this and corrected him with a smile. Count Greatsword's speech skills have indeed improved a lot. Greatsword glanced at the two of them and said nothing. "Just some beasts." Viscount Mantis muttered quietly, with an expression of indifference on his face, but he deliberately lowered his voice, so that Princess Lin Ke could not hear him. "Yes, just some beasts. I can do it too." "Me too." There were several other Viscounts around Viscount Mantis, all following behind Count Grizzly. These Viscounts either had conflicts of interest with Azanan, or had interests with Grizzly and Viscount Mantis. Don't say that. Count Link's knights are still quite powerful. Yes, don't look at the few knights, but they are still very powerful. Count Grizzly commented with a smile on his face. His meaning was very clear, mocking that Link's knights had few orthodox professional knights. He originally thought that Blackclaw and the others were going to confront him again, but Princess Lin Ke turned around and looked at him, frowning. "Why are you so annoying?" Count Grizz was stunned for a moment, and before he could say anything, Princess Lin Ke turned around again, casually took out a few small black stones from her space ring, and threw them to Count Giant Sword and the others. "I'm giving them to you. They are not as annoying as that old man," Princess Lin Ke said, and continued to record Lin Ke's highlights with the photo stone. Count Ackley stared at the stone in his hand, and after a while he reacted, and said in surprise, "Iron marrow? 1 kilogram of iron marrow?" As he said that, he weighed it. The stone in his hand was only the size of a pigeon egg, but it actually weighed a full kilogram. "Iron marrow?" Not only Count Ackley, but also other nobles exclaimed, and Count Grizz's eyes were even more focused. Iron marrow is equivalent to mithril and gold essence. These are the favorite materials of ancient magicians and warriors, and can be used to make excellent magic weapons. Now, the excellent materials of these three have also become one of the materials favored by professionals. At present, the iron marrow on the market is about 300 gold coins per gram, and 1 kilogram is 300,000 gold coins. Their Princess Lin Ke actually threw out 3 iron marrows weighing nearly 1 kilogram for a meal in Ke! Exclamation mark. Seeing this, the Grizzly Earl couldn't help but frowned. Yes, the princesses and princes of the black and white royal family will not easily interfere in the fights of other nobles. This is stipulated by His Majesty Wumian. However, a princess like Lin Ke, who is loved by everyone, may not need to interfere in the fight of nobles. She can only use her huge financial resources to take sides. Moreover, the Grizzly Earl suspected that, even if Princess Lin Ke committed a crime and intervened in the fight between local nobles, Emperor Wumian would probably turn a blind eye. Are you kidding? I don't let my son and daughter interfere in your fight, because I respect you. You actually made my little baby Lin Ke so angry and sad that she took sides? How desperate is my little fairy to do such a thing? I'll just kill you. Thinking of His Majesty Wumian's protective character, Count Grizz could not help but shudder. Moreover, Count Grizz looked at the dark stone and thought of the weapon he had always wanted to make and could not help swallowing his saliva. He tilted his head to look at Viscount Mantis, who looked a little anxious and winked at Grizz frantically. Looking at the other viscounts following behind him, none of them dared to look at him and had ulterior motives. Grizz could not help but sigh inwardly, and then a smile appeared on his face, looking at Princess Lin Ke. By the way, Your Highness Lin Ke, I heard that the black and white royal family cannot interfere in the struggle between local nobles. Princess Lin Ke turned her head and looked at Grizz strangely. What are you talking about? I have a lot of money, so what's wrong with giving some to people I like? TSK, annoying. Lin Ke turned her head again after saying that, and looked at Lin Ke charging with her chin propped up. Grizz's face froze immediately. However, at this moment, the expression of the greatsword count next to him suddenly changed, and he looked in Lin Ke's direction. Not good. There is a strong man. Chapter 120 War and Love. My knights, follow me and charge. Lin Ke squeezed out a bit of his professional energy, used the amplification technique, and then led the people's knights to launch the final round of charge. Just a few minutes later, there was almost no living thing under the hoof of the Gila Bull. Lin Ke took off his bloody helmet, casually inserted the iron sword into the sword sheath on the bull's back, and looked around. All he could see were corpses, and almost all of them were animal corpses. The internal organs, intestines, flesh, and dirt were mixed together, with a pungent and unpleasant smell. If it were him 3 months ago, he would probably faint after smelling it. But now, Lin Ke took a deep breath of the rusty air and shouted again, "We won. We defeated the first wave of attack from the Great Swamp. Great." Lalita was the first to cheer, and the 2 sledgehammers in her hands flew out of her hands and hit the bloody pit next to her, splashing blood for a while. The blood splashed on Nyx, making him covered with red spots. Nyx shook his fur unhappily, but found that he couldn't shake it anymore, and he was almost like a blood rabbit. So he simply climbed onto the back of the cow, and didn't want to move. He was exhausted just now, and all the energy in his body was squeezed out. You know, just now, the herbal treatment he used probably saved more than a dozen people, and Ramel was still that chic and romantic look at this time. He shouted softly, "The glory of Azan." The voice spread out, and everyone was shocked. Lin Ke's hands were originally sore, but now he wanted to get off the cow and charge a few more times. But there was really no professional energy left in his body. The 3 seedlings that were originally thriving and thickened the soul space were now sluggish. They were really squeezed out. "Stop howling." Lin Ke quickly stopped Ramel. "If you squeeze it again, you will bleed." "Yes, my commander." Ramel was happy. There was no blood on his face. It was obvious that he deliberately kept it clean during the charge just now. The level gap is big. Lin Ke was a little sour. Rami was a level 10 bard, and he probably suffered very little damage in the charge just now. Lalita and Butler Billy also felt very relaxed. John, Sophie and Nyx were almost lying down due to exhaustion. The other knights were even more shaky. However, they won after all. Lin Ke exhaled slightly, and then shouted, "Clean up the battlefield. Go back." At this time, there were still some wounded soldiers and beasts that were wailing on the field. The meaning of cleaning the battlefield at this time was not to select spoils. After all, these beasts were not monsters, and there were not many useful materials. Even if there were some furs and claws, they were all mixed with blood and flesh, and there was no time to pick them up. This place is close to the Great Swamp, which is still very dangerous. So the sword and shield soldiers and spearmen who still had strength came up to rescue the wounded. Although the rescue method was not particularly scientific, they had undergone some post-war training, so they all knew what to do. However, there were still some people who could not be rescued. Huijina. A man knelt in front of another man, lying on the man's chest and crying. Everyone was attracted by the crying. Kingcha, return to the team. The captain of the spear team saw this scene, and frowned and shouted coldly. The troops governed by Lin Ke were not as free and undisciplined as other nobles. Some nobles even had no private army, only mercenaries. The troops governed by Lin Ke had extremely strict discipline. Staying after Lin Ke ordered the battlefield to be cleaned up was a violation of military discipline. The captain of the spear team was afraid that Lin Ke would blame him, so he scolded him with the purpose of protecting Kingcha. But at this time, Lin Ke didn't think so much. He quickly drove the Gila Niu over, then jumped down, threw his helmet aside, and walked over quickly. Nix. Come and see. Lin Ke knelt down and looked at the man lying on the ground. This man named Huijina was an old man in the castle. He had very dark skin and was a farmer from a family in Azan village. Now, Huijina was lying on the ground, dying, with a large gap on his stomach, and the liver inside was missing, looking like it was gouged out by a beast. Nix, who was about to fall asleep due to exhaustion, immediately turned into a residual shadow and ran over when he heard Lin Ke's voice and quickly wanted to use herbal healing skills. But his trembling and glowing hands did not heal the person in front of him. Mr. Lin Ke, I can't do it. As he said that, 2 lines of clear tears naturally flowed from Nix's eyes. It's not your responsibility. Lin Ke frowned, patted Nix's shoulder, and then stepped forward to hold Huijina's hand. You are my guard. Please tell me your last wish, and I will make it come true. Lin Ke looked at Huijina's almost lifeless eyes. Huijin looked at the sky with his eyes. The blood in his mouth seemed to have dried up. His lips turned pale, and his upper and lower jaws moved slightly, as if he was saying something. Regardless of whether it was dirty or not, Lin Ke immediately leaned over to listen. Kingcha. Huijina seemed to be trying hard to say something. Lin Ke winked at the old man crying beside him, and the man named Kingcha came over. At this time, Lin Ke's followers all gathered together, with solemn expressions, and even Lalita didn't say anything. I'm here. The man named Kingcha kept crying, and looked very sad. Huijina's eyes seemed to move, and he said vaguely, young master. Lin Ke held back the complicated feeling in his heart and whispered, Huijina, tell me, I will fulfill your wish. Help me, marry my sister, off. Huijina's voice became a little clearer. Marry his sister off. Lin Ke nodded. Don't worry, I will find a good home for her. Swear in the name of the god of joy and love. Is there anything else? He felt heavy in his heart. Huijina seemed not to hear Lin Ke's words, but muttered to himself, Kingcha. I love you Kingcha. It was so good. Those days. As he spoke, Huijina's voice became smaller, and then there was no sound. I love you, Kingcha. Lin Ke's body suddenly stiffened, and the followers around him couldn't help holding their breath. The atmosphere suddenly became cold, and only Kingcha's crying continued. Of course, only Lalita's eyes burst out with a terrifying brilliance, sweeping back and forth between Huijina and Kingcha, with an excited expression and a face full of bumps. Hey, young master, Her Highness Rika and the noble masters are waiting on the wall of Azin. At this time, Butler Billy stepped forward and said softly. Lin Ke immediately stood up and ordered the captain of the spears, go and gather all the soldiers of Azin, gather them, and wait for me to issue a new decree in the evening. There are about 20 chapters left before the war chapter comes to an end, and it will return to farming. Chapter 121 Legend. The King of Warcraft. Lin Ke quickly dealt with Huijina and Kingcha, and then returned to the Great Wall. Butler Billy was using the skill cleaning to deal with the stains on Lin Ke's armor and head, making Lin Ke look neater. Mr. Lin Ke, At this time, Nix's face was full of self-blame, and tears kept flowing. In his opinion, he didn't save Huijina just now, because he was too weak. It's okay, Nix, I believe you can be more powerful in the future. Lin Ke sat on the back of the bull and shook his head gently at Nix. Just as he was about to say something to others, he saw that far away on the other side of the Great Wall, Count Blackclaw, Count Giant Sword and other beings above level 15 all took off. Above level 15, you can fly. These people who flew up were all nobles who had a good relationship with Lin Ke, including Princess Lin Ke, who was originally recording with the photo stone, and seemed to be taking something out of the space ring. At the same time, Lin Ke only felt waves of surging waves coming from behind him. Not good. Enemy attack. It's a monster. Lin Ke reacted instantly and shouted, "Everyone, charge." Then he immediately entered the state, driving the Gila bull under his crotch to run forward. Skill. Charge. Use charge to escape. When charging, Lin Ke had a little time to look back. After the battlefield full of flesh and blood, 7 or 8 giant snakes shot out from the jungle outside the great swamp and quickly swam in the air. The one in the middle was very huge, and the huge fluctuations coming from its body almost made Lin Ke unable to breathe. This is definitely a high-level monster. It may also be a monster king. Come to kill them. Run. Run, run, run. Run apart. Lin Ke tried his best to squeeze out the little night power left in his body, and the Gila bull under his seat, who was already exhausted, did the same. However, Lin Ke suddenly thought of something and turned his head again. The target of the snakes was very clear. That is Lin Ke. Coming for Lin Ke. Lin Ke gritted his teeth. His teacher Aofu and other nobles were already rushing over, but they couldn't catch up. The monsters were too close. At this moment, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and struck the giant snakes. Aofu. It was Aofu who made the move. However, Lin Ke didn't feel happy at all. After all, the giant snake in the middle was stronger than Aofu in his perception. Sure enough, the bolts of lightning had no effect on the speed of the giant snakes. It was like a gust of wind blowing on the giant snakes. The most terrible thing was that Lin Ke felt that the giant snake in the middle was indeed coming for him. Why? Lin Ke thought to himself while charging and running. Before he could think of anything, a red giant snake next to the giant snake in the middle was ejected into the air like a cannonball and collided with Aofu, who turned into thunder and fell down. The collision between the thunder and the red line turned out that the thunder was slightly inferior. The power of the snake was not inferior to Aofu. This made Lin Ke more certain that the giant snake must be a legendary existence. After all, even its subordinates were all star level. Just as Lin Ke continued to run for his life, the task box in front of him popped up. You have successfully led your people to appear in front of the entire army and defeated the tentative attack of the lava swamp. Reward to be collected. Is the reward here? Lin Ke's mind turned, and he looked around. The people of the People's Knights had already fled in all directions. The snakes ignored everyone and rushed straight towards Lin Ke with a clear goal. Such a clear goal still caught everyone's eyes. At this time, the nobles on the other side of the Great Wall seemed to be unable to catch up, and Lin Ke could only rely on himself. However, something unexpected, but expected, happened. Master. John turned his head in an instant and did not charge forward, but charged in the direction of Lin Ke. He was furious and almost used up the last bit of strength left in his body, using it on the knight profession. Skill. Charge. The master cannot die, at least not before him. If you want the young master to die, then step over his body. John's eyes were firm. 3 people turned around at the same time, including Billy, Nix and Sophie. Lalita was running very fast, but now she reacted and rushed over with a sledgehammer. Yahoo! I'm going to kill a legend today. Ramanal hesitated for a while and drove the Gila bull to stop, but did not turn around, but opened his mouth and shouted, "The glory of Azan." Skill. Chanting. At this time, the sound could not reach Lin Ke, and the speed of the giant snake seemed to be faster than the sound. There was even a sonic boom. Kill my lord. Die. The giant snake was not far from Lin Ke at this time, speaking human language, and the voice was extremely cold. There were still a few hundred meters. Lin Ke heard the voice of the giant snake in the distance at this time, and he didn't think much in his heart. Instead, he was overwhelmed by John and his actions to protect his master. The one who wanted to kill him was the King of Warcraft. Legend. In Nassang, legend means nuclear bomb. When the nuclear bomb comes, everything will be wiped out. This kind of action of resisting behind Lin Ke is meaningless. But they still did it. Whether it was a resolute face, a hesitant face, or a crazy face, such as Lalita, they all did it, and did this meaningless action. It's just, is it really meaningless to do this? Lin Ke felt that something that he had seen and heard in his previous life broke in his heart. It turned out that this was a follower who would never betray. Follow you until the stars fall, the world collapses, the rules are destroyed, and die. Then, take a gamble. Without further ado, Lin Ke blinked his eyes, clicked to receive in his mind, and then immediately turned the direction of Gila Niu, and rushed behind him. You, follow behind me, follow me to charge. Lin Ke chuckled, and the power of scholar in his body surged out. Instead of using skills, he used a sound amplification technique to spread the sound far away. In his soul space, the night power in the leader bloodline had already been exhausted, and the young seedling was constantly absorbing element from the surrounding environment and then transforming them into night power. There was nothing in the lucky bloodline, which meant that Lin Ke did not have a job. The scholar power in the knowledge bloodline was also exhausted, and the last bit was used by him to release the amplification technique, which was now empty. Although Lin Ke was talented, without the blessing of meditation, the recovery effect would be greatly reduced. Moreover, in this kind of duel, even if 10 Lin Kes recovered their strength, it would not be enough for the legend to breathe. However, in the eyes of the nobles who jumped down from the Great Wall, they could not help but respect him. They could see that Lin Ke was not charging at all at this time, but just running on the Gillable, running towards the legend. His followers were the same, one by one, just running on the Gillable. Strictly speaking, followers don't have to do this. You know, even if the master servant contract is signed, the follower will only drop a few levels if the master dies. In serious cases, the soul will be torn apart and become stupid, but at least they will not die. Followers also have the right to continue to escape in order to survive, but they have to bear a certain price. And now, these followers are all rushing back for Lin Ke. These nobles know that there is no contract between Lin Ke and his followers. John, Butler Billy and Sophie, they can understand. But Lalita did the same, and even Rami did not return to be a meat shield, but also stopped to help. This surprised the nobles. However, this surprise soon turned into regret, and finally turned into regret. Looking at Lin Ke charging with an iron sword and several followers behind him, the nobles were really sorry. Such an excellent noble is going to die. What a pity. Even those loyal followers, how nice it would be if they could follow these nobles. The nobles thought so. At this time, the nobles, including the Count of Giant Sword, the Count of Black Claw and others, did not move forward from the wall, but stopped outside the wall. At this time, the legendary aura of the giant snake came to their faces. Legend. This is the pressure of legend. At the same time, feeling this huge pressure, the nobles immediately panicked. Legend, legend, legend. How could it be? How is it possible? Run, run. King of Warcraft. No one thought of staying, no one thought of fighting back. If a nuclear bomb came, would anyone fight back by shooting a pistol? Run. Run as far as you can. Before building the Great Wall Fortress, they imagined what to do if the King of Warcraft was dispatched. But then they ruled out this possibility. Just as Lin Ke thought, legend is equivalent to nuclear bomb. In the NASM joint agreement, intelligent races such as humans and several major forces agreed that ordinary people should not be slaughtered easily. At the same time, it was also agreed that legends should not be dispatched easily. At this time, the lava swamp and the kingdom of Gila can be regarded as generations of personal grudges. After all, they can argue about the issue of coexistence of humans and monsters on the border. But if the King of Warcraft is dispatched, the legends of the kingdom of Gila will come out in full force. So at first, the nobles ruled out the possibility of the legend appearing on the field. Who would use nuclear bombs just after a section chief died on the border when they were at war with others? They would only do it when they had no choice. Lin Ke was skeptical at first, but Princess Lika told him privately that she had a treasure given to her by Emperor Wumian, which was equivalent to a treasure that Emperor Wumian could use with all his strength. Lin Ke was slightly relieved at that time. At this time, the nobles could not think so much. Most of them thought of running away at the moment, running far away. Although the person in charge of the fortress protection also opened the fortress protection. But the layer of protection that can only withstand the power of a legend's attack did not give them any sense of security. Of course, there were also smart little nobles who hid behind Princess Lin Ke. As for the earls above level 15, they stood there with gloomy faces. They knew that Princess Lin Ke did not move, which meant she was sure. But now they have more opinions about the situation and even have the intention to leave. At this time, there were changes on the field again. As a legend, the giant snake should be able to travel thousands of miles in a flash, but it took 2 minutes to get from one side of the battlefield to the other. Just the momentum blew John and others away, and the orphan and the star level red snake in the sky were also fighting fiercely. But Lin Ke was not afraid at all. If it were in his previous life, he would definitely care about gains and losses and calculate. But now, he suddenly felt the incomparable sincerity and loyalty of John and others. Follower. So this is the meaning of a follower. Someone who follows the charge. Lin Ke seemed to feel that the bottleneck that had troubled him for several days in his body was loosened. Level 4 night. However, the snake was right in front of him. Kill my lord. Die. The voice of the giant snake resounded throughout the Great Wall Fortress. Lin Ke faced the giant snake directly. His eyes were extremely calm, and he shouted, "Knight Azan, follow me to charge." The followers behind him all raised their weapons, and even those who were knocked away echoed Lin Ke. Lin Ke. In the sky, Aofu's voice was like a god. 7 or 8 lightning balls, under the superposition of skill power, seriously injured the star level red snake in an instant. However, he couldn't catch up. Even if he caught up, Aofu would definitely not be able to defeat or stop the legendary power. And just when Lin Ke was thinking that he was really going to die this time, suddenly, the world suddenly became quiet. Chapter 122 Mysterious Tower. On the battlefield, Lin Ke truly felt the meaning of followers that day and officially broke through the 4th level night. And just when Lin Ke could see the gaze of the mysterious existence, that is, glance, the battlefield suddenly became quiet. Lin Ke was certain in his heart and immediately knew that the gaze of the mysterious existence was indeed not that simple. The bet was right. The battlefield was still, and Lin Ke's thoughts were normal, but his body could not move. Looking at the legendary giant snake on the opposite side, it seemed to be the same. I don't know how long it will be fixed. By the way, what is the principle of this kind of body fixation? Control neuronal activity through biological electromagnetic waves. But in this way, thoughts should also stop. Lin Ke began to think wildly. As soon as the thought fell, Lin Ke heard a slightly irritable voice. "Little snake, retreat. Legends cannot be released." As soon as the voice sounded, Lin Ke saw that the original legendary giant snake seemed to have turned into dough that could be kneaded at will, from large to small, and finally turned into a dot and disappeared on the spot. This legend gone. Before Lin Ke could think more, he felt that his body seemed to have become dough that could be kneaded at will. What the hell? Exclamation mark. As soon as he thought of this, he felt his body spinning, and everything around him became colorful and dark. His body was like bungee jumping. The intense tearing and weightlessness made Lin Ke extremely painful. It seemed like a moment had passed, and it seemed like a long time had passed. He couldn't help but scream, just like a shy girl surrounded by 7 or 8 excited men. Ah, 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 ah. In just a moment, all the feelings disappeared in an instant, and Lin Ke felt that he seemed to be lying on the ground. He saw a bright light, but Lin Ke was still screaming, ah, ah. Lin Ke knew that the mysterious being must be extremely powerful. If he yelled and wanted to leave, something bad might happen. So he quickly got up from the ground and looked up. This was a very pretty girl with fair skin and extremely soft fur on her ears and tail. Wait, ears and tail? Is this a cat man? It's just that it's not a fury type orc that walks upright like Nyx and the Duke of the Mountain's attendant, but another kind. Lin Ke raised his eyebrows. Excuse me, who is your master? The cat man girl didn't say anything, but motioned for him to follow. The others dispersed, and Lin Ke noticed that none of these people were human like him. Either they had scales under their cheeks, or their arms were super long, or they had tails on their butts. Almost all of them here are orcs. The key is that Lin Ke didn't know how powerful it was to instantly get rid of the legendary giant snake and bring him here. So he didn't ask too much and just got up and followed. This room looked simple, with stone platforms everywhere and various people standing beside the stone platforms, busy and busy. Except for the time when he was yelling, they were too busy to look at Lin Ke now. Lin Ke looked carefully and found that there were all kinds of strange things on these stone platforms. It seemed that these people were studying these things. Some people had an ordinary piece of wood in front of them, some had half a deep red tail in front of them, and there were also screaming leaves, bleeding stones, all kinds of strange things. Is this really a research institute? Question mark. Lin Ke couldn't help wanting to see everything around him, but the cat man in front of him merged again. Please hurry up. Lin Ke hurried to catch up again. This building should also be a castle, or a tower. When Lin Ke came out of the room, he could see countless stairs up and down, and some people were walking on them. This cylindrical tower was very tall and spacious inside. Lin Ke estimated that the diameter was 200 or 300 meters, and the cross-section was larger than the football field of his school in his previous life. Moreover, the interior is not only bright and bright, but also has a breeze blowing, which feels very comfortable. Looking up, I don't know how many floors there are. From the outside, it must be a magnificent building. Lin Ke exclaimed as he followed the cat man to the stairs. Hold my hand. The cat man stretched out his white and tender hand and looked at Lin Ke. Then, let your mind go. This cat man and Nix are of different races. For example, if Nix lies down, he will be no different from a big rabbit. And this cat man seems to be no different from humans except for his ears and tail. Of course, it's just seeming. After all, Lin Ke didn't see his whole body. Lin Ke held the cat man's hand, and the cat man walked towards the stairs like a mother holding her son. When he stepped on the stairs, Lin Ke felt that his feet seemed to be surrounded by a breeze, and a warm voice came from his ears. Please tell me the door number. Lin Ke. This. Number 0. The cat man spoke at this time. As soon as the voice fell, the cat man raised his leg and pulled Lin Ke to the stairs. But what surprised Lin Ke was that the moment he stepped onto the stairs, he seemed to lose control, and his body was carried up quickly. His whole body seemed to be controlled, and he walked up quickly under a gust of wind. You can also choose to walk freely, but the help of the tower spirit is the most convenient and quickest. The cat man in front was also very fast, and Lin Ke immediately understood that his state was added by the tower spirit of this tower. It's really convenient and quick, but it's a bit uncomfortable. Lin Ke felt his legs moving quickly, and he didn't feel the soreness of his muscles. This seemed to be a blessing. In fact, it doesn't seem to be difficult to break this controlled state. As long as you move your mind, it will be fine. I don't know how this tower spirit was made. It sounds a bit like artificial intelligence. In the future, we can also make one from Asen. While Lin Ke was thinking, he had already followed the cat man to dozens or hundreds of floors, and he didn't even count which floor he was on. From time to time, there were people passing by them, and they were all people who acted with the help of the tower spirit. Basically, I didn't see him walking. Finally, Lin Ke and the cat man seemed to have reached the highest point, the spire. It was normal for Zero to be at the spire, but Lin Ke was a little excited. What exactly was that mysterious existence? Was it also an orc like the cat man? Continental supervisor? NASA controller? On-duty person? Or something else? Go in. The cat man left Lin Ke behind and hurried back, looking very busy. Thank you. Lin Ke thanked him and then looked at the door in front of him. It was a metal door with nothing on it. It felt a bit rustic and heavy. Lin Ke went forward to knock on the door, but the door opened by itself. The master is waiting for you. The voice of the tower spirit sounded again in his ears. Lin Ke did not hesitate and walked in immediately. It was very spacious inside, but it seemed that there was no one there, but there were many cabinets, stone platforms, boxes, etc., and it felt like there were a lot of things. Wait there. Wait until I finish this little thing. A slightly irritable voice came from inside, which made Lin Ke unable to deal with it, especially after adding a sentence that was not whispered at all. Woomian, that idiot, is he brainless? He always makes trouble. Thank you all for your monthly ticket rewards! Exclamation mark. Silver and Alliance leaders, remember to join the group and chat with me privately. There are benefits. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Law, God's Retreat, Legends Are Forbidden. Lin Ke was thinking. Whose voice was that of this grumpy old man? How could he call Emperor Wumian a fool? Either he was an elder or a strong man. Or both. And in the scene on the battlefield before, even the legendary giant snake was taken away directly. He was also the owner of room 0 of this tower. It seems that he must be a strong man. While thinking, Lin Ke looked at everything around him, but he couldn't see anything. A few minutes later, an old man appeared in front of him. The old man was very thin, with white hair, sloppy, and wearing a white robe. What surprised Lin Ke the most was that the old man was very short, like a dwarf, about 1.2 meters tall. Especially when he walked lightly, you couldn't see any clothes swaying in his lower body. Boy, what's wrong with your head? The old man glanced at Lin Ke, then immediately widened his eyes, flew in front of Lin Ke, and looked directly into Lin Ke's eyes. Lin Ke was startled, and just as he was about to step back, he found that his body could not move. Then, a strong light burst out from the old man's eyes, which was not dazzling at all, and he looked directly at Lin Ke. For a moment, Lin Ke felt as if all his secrets were seen through. Eyes are windows to the soul, and the soul can best reflect a person's soul. I was careless. Lin Ke regretted it a little, because he felt that he could not resist such a strong man, so he did not resist from the beginning. But the old man just took a look, and then the light in his eyes was completely retracted, and his face was weird and said, "Boy, did you get hit on the head by something when you were a child? Strange. Are you polite?" Lin Ke was a little helpless and a little angry. "Excuse me, who are you? Why are you prying into my privacy?" Prying into privacy? Privacy? Well, it seems to be counted. How about this? You tell me a wish, and I will fulfill it for you, within my ability. The old man scratched his head, and said a little irritably, "It seems to be written like this in those night novels. Well, I will fulfill your wish." Oh. It was just a casual remark, and it seemed quite reasonable. Lin Ke raised his eyebrows, but he didn't expect that such a strong man would be so reasonable. Wish? As for wishes. Okay, my wish is to have 3 more wishes. Lin Ke said seriously. What did you say? The old man in front of him widened his eyes, and looked at Lin Ke. Lin Ke analyzed calmly. You said that you want to fulfill one of my wishes, and it must be within your ability. Look, my wish is 3 wishes. Is it within your ability? The old man was stunned. In this world, there is no story of the fisherman and the goldfish, nor the idiom of greed. Unlike the last world, this kind of joke has become too rotten. So, this was the first time the old man heard of this kind of train of thought, and then, okay. After thinking about it, the old man nodded, smacked his lips, and said angrily, "There is indeed something wrong with your brain." This time it was Lin Ke who was stunned, and then reflexively, Lin Ke almost blurted out, "My first wishes." But, the old man widened his eyes, and said almost in a roaring tone, "But wishes can't be superimposed. Then I will become your slave." Lin Ke saw some disappointment in his eyes. "Then what can your 3 wishes do? Can they make me fight against legends? Can they make me have thousands of clones? Or what?" Who knew that the old man actually waved his hand impatiently. "Get out." After that, the old man waved his hand, and before Lin Ke could say anything, his body turned into a dot again and disappeared. Only the old man was left mumbling to himself angrily, "I'm Andrew, a pioneer admired by thousands of people, a wise man with vast knowledge. I almost can't handle you." Humph. The old man smacked his lips, and then suddenly widened his eyes. Wait, what did I call him for just now? At this point, the old man was stunned. He was looking for this kid for something serious. Get him back? My legs, that's too embarrassing. Andrew was extremely annoyed. Forget it, let's do it next time. Anyway, the curse of Zernatal is not a big deal. Well, but he actually has the same blood as me. That's interesting. While mumbling to himself, Andrew returned to the original stone platform and continued his research as if nothing had happened. South of Azan, the Great Wall Fortress, Lin Ke's body suddenly appeared where he had disappeared, and everything that was originally still suddenly regained its sound. Master, run. Mr. Lin Ke, run. Lin Ke's followers were still shouting, as if time had stopped at the last moment. The only difference was that the legendary giant snake had disappeared without a trace, leaving only 7 or 8 snakes. And at this moment, Lin Ke only felt a strong wave coming from behind him, and this wave was like a mountain pressing down, forcing the Gila bull under his seat to kneel down directly. The pressure from the direction of the fortress. A powerful voice resounded throughout the venue. Law. 3,000 meters from here, God's retreat, and legends are forbidden to go. God's retreat. Legends are forbidden to go. So domineering. Is this a law? What law? Lin Ke turned his head quickly and saw Princess Rika floating high above the city wall, her hair flying wantonly, and a burst of white light bursting out of her green eyes. In Rika's hand, there was an open parchment, and the voice just now came from there. Lin Ke only felt that there were some inexplicable things between heaven and earth. This thing was spreading with Princess Rika as the center, following the spread of the voice. Is this the backup plan that Emperor Wumian left for Princess Rika? But at this time, Princess Rika was shocked to see that the legendary giant snake that originally wanted to save Lin Ke but was chasing Lin Ke disappeared in an instant, because she knew that the life-saving skill her father gave her was not that powerful. It could only be said that it could expel beings above level 21, and it could not make such beings disappear in an instant. So, was this done by Lin Ke? Rika slowly descended from the sky, the light in her eyes gradually disappeared, and her fluttering hair also fell down. The other nobles standing on the city wall were still in shock at this time. Is this the voice of your majesty? Your majesty, save me, save me. The emperor is here, we are saved. Those weak little nobles cried and made a fuss. They all thought that Emperor Wumian had come and took away the legendary giant snake. Fortunately, at this time, the Count of Gris stood up and scolded, "Shut up, you boneless idiots. That is the gift from His Majesty Wumian to Her Highness Rika." As he said that, the Count of Gris quickly rose into the air, and his muscles swelled several times in an instant. There are still a few snakes, let's go. You are scared like this by a snake, stupid. The Count of Giant Sword glanced at the nobles who were scared by the legendary giant snake, and then rose into the air, holding the giant sword that was originally on his back. Count Blackclaw and Count Akali also raised their own strength and prepared to fight. Although there were no legendary giant snakes in the sky at this time, there were still 7 giant snakes that had not been solved. The most powerful one was even a star level 1, fighting with Aofu. There were 6 giant snakes left, all of which were above level 15. At this time, the effect of the law of Emperor Wumian had just taken effect, and the legendary giant snake disappeared, and the remaining giant snakes were terrified. One for each person. The voice of the highest level Count of Giant Sword was cold, but full of murderous intent. Chapter 124 Nasang's Fighting Style. Lin Ke quickly got up from the ground. He did not look at the Great Sword Earl and others, but looked at his own teacher. At this time, Aofu was fighting with the red star level giant snake in the sky. The scales of the red giant snake were all standing up, and each scale burst out with a needle-like red light, and a scorching air wave emanated from it. Thick magma was sprayed from its mouth, and the sound of the snake's tail was blasted, and half of the sky was dyed red. Lin Ke estimated that he probably couldn't hit the red giant snake standing there, and he might be injured by the sharp needles on the snake's scales. However, Aofu at this moment was even more powerful. Aofu's beard and hair were all stretched out, and there was only dazzling lightning in his eyes. It seemed that there was a thunder in his mouth, and there was thunder every time he opened and closed his mouth. Purple electric current spread all over Aofu's body, forming an electric grid that attached to his wizard robe. Skills, lightning element. The magma spray of the red giant snake could not hurt AOF at all, and could only be offset by the electric net that AOF condensed with thunder element. At the same time, nodes lit up one by one on AOF's arms, and the shadow of a pulley flashed by, and the nodes spread from the shoulders to the fingertips. Skill power superposition. Dare to hurt my disciple. AOF shouted, and the lightning in his eyes and mouth became stronger. He took out his thunder staff in an instant, raised it high, and superimposed the power nodes on his arms one by one, and then smashed it towards the red giant snake. The crystal on the top of the thunder staff felt AOF's thunder power, and burst into a burst of light, wrapping the top of the staff. From a distance, it looked like AOF was swinging a long-handled sledgehammer. Hiss. The red giant snake roared long, and its thick body curled up in an instant, and the whole snake seemed to have become a red stone plate. Compared with the stone plate, AOF's figure was like an ant on a plate. HMPH. However, Aofu smashed down without caring, and the thunder magic hammer shot out plasma. Bang! A muffled sound came from the battlefield, and the snake formation formed by the giant snakes was smashed to the ground like a meteorite. The ground cracked directly, as if a piece of red land that had been dry for many years was hit by a meteorite. Lin Ke only had time to raise a thin air pressure shield to protect his head and several joints, and his body was blown away by a strong air wave mixed with sand and stones. Aofu in the sky did not give up, and his body also shot down, and then raised the thunder magic hammer high up again, hammering down one by one. Bang, bang, bang. Aofu smashed one hammer after another, and the whole battlefield rang with regular sounds and regular airwaves. If Lin Ke closed his eyes, he would even wonder if he was listening to people playing drums. At this moment, an angry roar came from the depths of the jungle. Kill that human. The legendary monster spoke a human voice. This legendary monster was also angered by Aofu. Several giant snakes that were panicking before received the order, and all took off into the air and flew towards Lin Ke again. However, at this time, the Count of Giant Sword and others arrived. In addition to several earls, there were many viscounts and some barons. They each landed in the previously assigned army formation, and then the energy on their bodies rolled. Haha, the new battle formation is really exciting. Count Blackclaw flew directly from the city wall to his wolf, and the nails of his hands quickly stretched and turned black, as if they had mutated. Occupation: Black Wolf Warlock. Some people in his cavalry team rode gila cattle, some rode horses, and some rode deer, but most of them rode wolves. His butler was in the team at this time. His eyes flashed with strange black light, and one by one, visible energy connected to other cavalry like tentacles. Ha, boys, follow me to kill snakes. Count Blackclaw let out a strange cry, and the giant wolf under his seat immediately stepped on all four hooves and ran. The entire cavalry team moved, as if it were a whole, and in a trance it was like a black giant wolf rushing. Skill: Night Clan. The Count of Giant Sword landed in the front and center of the infantry square. His body was instantly wrapped in scarlet energy, forming a ferocious scarlet giant armor. I am the King of War. The Count of Giant Sword held the giant sword, spewing a heavy breath from his mouth, and two deep red eyes appeared in his helmet. Occupation: War Maniac. His armor covered his whole body, and two scarlet spikes extended from the joints of his knees and elbows. The helmet that covered his entire head also extended spikes on the forehead, which looked ferocious and terrifying. War Maniac. Skill: Doomsday Armor. Follow your will. Not far behind him, the armor who had a conflict with Lin Ke before and apologized stood straight at this time, and his voice was sonorous and powerful. As soon as the voice of the armor fell, a stream of energy shot out, and a pair of light red energy armor appeared on the people around him. Occupation: Logistics Commander. Skill: Armor Supply. At this time, including the Count of Grizzly Bear, the Count of Kingquin, and others, all prepared their teams. Count Akali was at the back of the army. Seeing that everyone was ready, he chuckled and said, "Brothers, spend your wealth." He waved his hands lightly in the sky on both sides, and countless gold coins fell from the sky and fell into the soldiers' bodies. The soldiers' strength and speed suddenly increased. Occupation: Merchant. Skill: Wealth Incentive. In addition to the earls, some viscounts also used their own strength. For a moment, the energy of the entire battlefield was boiling. Rami brought back the knights, who had just dispersed, and brought Lin Ke and others back to the city wall one by one. Can they beat them? Sitting on the back of the ox, Lin Ke was a little worried. Those giant snakes are of higher level, and the highest here is the 17th level giant sword earl. Orf was still hammering the star level giant snake, and couldn't get his hands free to help. Rami, who was standing next to him, heard what Lin Ke said and replied with a smile. Don't worry, Mr. Lin Ke. The charge of the knights has always been invincible. Rami's voice fell, and the giant snakes collided with a team of the Great Sword Earl and his team. Just a face to face, the fierce giant snakes were knocked away or suppressed. There was also a level 19 giant snake that faced the Great Sword Earl, but was directly cut in half by the Great Sword Earl with his family heirloom giant sword. The Great Sword Earl's mouth sprayed a burning breath, and the hideous armor on his body was faintly shining. The power of the people behind him seemed to be continuously gathered through the armor on his body. Gather the strength of all the soldiers, and kill the snake. After the red giant snake was killed, the Great Sword Earl ignored the corpse of the snake, that was still hissing, but looked towards the direction of the jungle. He sensed that there were some giant beasts peeking there. The level was far above him. But, you beasts, come out and fight me if you dare. The cold voice of the Great Sword Count came over, sounding imposing. Hiss, you can come over. A cold voice came from the direction of the Great Swamp. It was the legendary giant snake before. Come over? Haha. The Great Sword Count smiled inwardly. With the Great Emperor's decree, how could he risk his life to go to the Great Swamp? He couldn't beat the legend. It's just a waste. The Great Sword Count sneered, expressing the sarcasm vividly. It can be seen that he should have practiced this skill of looking down on others when he was young. So, the snakes in the Great Swamp rioted. Chapter 125. Legend is approaching. The Great Sword Count was cursing at the Great Swamp, while the other teams were fighting with the giant snakes. After a while, 2 of the giant snakes escaped, and the remaining 5 were all killed. The star level giant snake that Aofu was hammering used the life-saving skill snake shedding to escape Aofu's violent hammering. At this time, endless snakes were seen pouring out of the Great Swamp, and the number was even greater than the previous tide of beasts, and some magic beasts were mixed in. However, at this time, the Great Wall Fortress. Not long after Lin Ke fell, Lin Ke stuffed a bottle of magic potion into his mouth. As soon as he drank it, Lin Ke recovered all his strength and even felt 100 times more energetic. A man dressed in gold and silver hurried over, with white light coming out of his hands. Lord Lin Ke, do you need me? This is an 8th level professional, witch doctor. He used to think highly of himself, and even when Lin Ke was sick as a child, he needed Feudal to ask for help before he could save him. Now I heard that Lin Ke has become rich and is more ruthless than Garros, and I heard that he has other witch doctors. How can this be? Exclamation mark. So the witch doctor came running over and volunteered to join Azan. Lin Ke thought of his life-saving grace in the past, so he didn't make any more arrangements or revenge, and later he followed Nyx. However, Lin Ke didn't have time to say anything to them at this time, and immediately cast an eagle eye spell, and looked over at the battlefield. After killing the giant snake, all the teams were ready. Endless snakes and pythons poured out, mighty and powerful. Obviously, the legendary giant snake inside was angry. But, it was angry, and someone was even angrier. Thunder. Storm. At this time, Aof's hair and beard were all erected, and he was holding the thunder staff. In an instant, he drained the lightning element of the entire battlefield, and condensed them all on the staff. Aof's 9th skill position, plus the combination skill thunderstorm that combined 3 skill positions, when he was level 19. The thunderball condensed at the top of Aof's staff, getting bigger and bigger, and thick plasma shot onto the surrounding land, leaving a series of charred marks. Lin Ke had seen this skill before in Parrot City, but the lightning ball was cancelled by Aofu before it became a thunderstorm. At this time, Aofu was furious. Damn snake. You almost killed my disciple. Back off. Lin Ke had heard Aofu talk about this ranged skill, and he immediately used the loudspeaker to yell at everyone. The Great Sword Earl and others ran faster than Lin Ke imagined. Who are the Great Sword Earl and his friends? They are locals of Nassam. Those high-level professionals use their skills, and they know the principle of accidental injury the most. So they ran away without waiting for Lin Ke to remind them. Lin Ke was relieved. However, the legendary giant snake over there was not so stupid, and it had already recalled the snake group when it saw the situation was not good. It was just that the snake group was not something that could be called and called at will. Some snakes with levels still rushed over, but they could not make a difference. As for the star level, it seems that the one that was just hammered by Aofu was the only star level giant snake, and now the snake group can't find a second star level giant snake. Legends can't come in, there are no star level ones, and the rest of them are just here to serve food to AOF. At this time, AOF's plasma ball slowly spread in the sky, forming a thick dark cloud. Just as the people and snakes were watching, hundreds of purple lightnings poured down in an instant, like a grand waterfall. The electric grids intertwined, forming an airtight lightning field. The snakes in it were almost killed and cooked in an instant, and only a few were still struggling. From Lin Ke's direction, it was as if a dozen purple office buildings stood there and shimmered, and AOF's figure was extremely small in it. This combination skill of Lord AOF is very good even in the star level, Princess Lin Ke said beside Lin Ke. Lin Ke nodded. Although AOF is not a combat hero, he found that once AOF gets angry, his power is also very strong. He is usually socially anxious, and when he gets angry, he is a grumpy old man. Of course, there are not many things that can make AOF angry, and Lin Ke may be one of them. Just now, Lin Ke was almost killed by the legendary python, which is why AOF is angry now. However, after AOF used this big move, he still flew towards the fortress. He wanted to see Lin Ke's situation. As for the rest, it was left to the Earl of Giant Sword and the others to deal with some monsters easily. Lin Ke, how are you? AOF put the thunder staff back into the space ring at this time, and then took out 3 or 4 bottles of magic potions from it, and poured them into Lin Ke's mouth. Teacher, I have already drunk it. Lin Ke hurriedly refused. If he drank more, he would be burst by the magic power. AOF glanced at Lin Ke and understood. Teacher, are you okay? Drink more yourself. Lin Ke felt AOF's concern, and felt warm in his heart. No, Zio Lin Ke, drink more. If Princess Lin Ke hadn't chased away the legendary giant snake just now, the consequences would be disastrous. It's okay, teacher. Well, I'm very good now, but you just consumed too much. Zio Lin Ke, drink more. Teacher, you drink. Lin Ke looked at the master and disciple who were warming each other, and couldn't help rolling her eyes and said, Lin Ke, it's almost over there. I don't think the Great Swamp will attack for the time being. Only after hearing this did Lin Ke withdraw his attention from Aofu and turn to the battlefield. Sure enough, no new monsters appeared at this time, and the direction of the Great Swamp was quiet. However, there were 2 monsters floating high above the jungle, looking at the fortress here. The giant snake just now, and a lion. That's legendary, to legendary monster kings. Aofu looked serious. Lin Ke nodded slightly, and then used the sound amplification technique to summon the army to return. The 2 monster kings just looked at it for a while, and then flew into the depths of the jungle of the Great Swamp. Your Highness, Lin Ke, how long can the Emperor Wumian's weapon last? Seeing the Beast King fly away, Lin Ke immediately turned around and asked Lin Ke. Princess Lin Ke also looked serious at this time. She took out the parchment she had just collected and looked at it carefully, without avoiding Lin Ke and the others. So Lin Ke also looked over. It was written on the parchment, 3,000 meters from here, the gods retreat and legends are forbidden to travel. Although it was not in Chinese, Lin Ke could still feel the flying dragons and phoenixes of the characters, and he could feel a strong sense of dominance from looking at it. However, this is a sentence written by my father. There is a time reminder here. Lin Ke explained and pointed to a small clock on the upper right side of the parchment. The clock was ticking, and a few Nathan numbers were displayed on it. 29 days. My father's profession is king, and this is his skill king's order, which can last for 30 days. Lin Ke said, handing the parchment to Lin Ke, and then quickly took her hand back, as if handing a piece of hot red dragon meat. You are the commander, you can do it yourself. After that, she ate the cake easily, and even hummed free flying, as if she was much more relaxed. Lin Ke felt that he had taken over a death countdown clock, and every swing of the pointer on it was announcing the approach of the legend. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.